So what do you think? Does it feel like a championship weekend? Does it feel like championship weekend to you? Well, it is championship weekend, and we are just about 24 hours away from our first conference championship games in college football. It's always a bittersweet time when what you've looked forward to the entire season or the entire year comes to fruition. You're on the brink of the entertainment, of the tradition, of the pageantry, of the games themselves. And then, when they're over, because the biggest games being at the end of the season, you know what's coming up, folks. In about 6 weeks, you're going to have to listen to me rant and rave and babble on for about 8 months about college football every day. You're going to have to be here every day to listen to me every day. And I'm going to have all sorts of ratings and rankings and lists and predictions, and I'm going to have all sorts of evaluations and metrics for you to go through without any football. So embrace the football this weekend. Let's do it together here at the Voice of College Football. Welcome in. We've got a conference championship game, I believe, in Conference USA. Conference USA kicks it off, and shame on you if you haven't watched my Conference USA Western Kentucky, and this is how invested I am. Western Kentucky, and who are they playing in the Conference USA championship game? It's typically Marshall or UAB, but it's neither one of those. Oh my goodness, can't even remember. Conference USA championship game. Mark, don't even try to spit out the matchup. Just go with the game itself. We got that coming up tomorrow night. Prior to the Pac-12 championship game, I released my video on the championship preview of Conference USA, in which we all know who's playing in that. It's Western Kentucky. And I know somebody's going to remind me in the chat, but posted that video a couple hours ago, which should be pushing about 1 million views by now from all of you. Every so often, somebody will ask me, or somebody will encourage me, or somebody will shake a finger at me and preach to me, you should be covering more group of 5. And when I cover the group of 5, nobody watches. But we do have our Conference USA championship game tomorrow night, of which each and every year I think I am going to watch all 10 conference championship games. Of course, you can't watch them all live because there are some on at the same time. But I always think, well, I'm going to watch them. But then obviously the huge games take precedence. I watch those, and then we do our call-in show, and then I'm up all night with the top 25, and then we've got the playoff selections the next day and all the bowl selections and those conference championship games. It's like the NCAA basketball tournament during March Madness, conference tournament weekends. It's exciting and all that. But when the NCAA selections are just a couple hours after the conference tournament championship games, that's kind of forgotten. Like, wow, we won a Conference USA tournament championship. Well, then the tournament selections come out a couple hours later, and that's old news. It's old news once what used to be 64 come out, now 68, as I understand it, because I haven't watched Selection Sunday. I used to be all in on Selection Sunday. I was all in on college basketball, loved college basketball, but it was a long, long time ago. So now it's, yes, it is college football versions of the College Selection Sunday. So this Sunday, I believe noon, correct? We will double check on that. Noon Eastern time should be selection time. So guess what? Just like the playoff rankings watch parties, we're going to be right here. So you need to join us at noon Eastern time on Sunday as we watch the top 25. Not the top 25 that actually makes sense. I'm going to have to preempt that by releasing that early. So I can't, I guess in previous seasons, I forget, I don't remember what happened last year, but I must have released that sometime late Saturday night after the call-in show. because I've got to get a jump on the actual selections that come out. So I will release that at like 3 a.m. The top 25. That actually makes sense. We'll release that late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. And then we're all going to be back here on Sunday at noon to watch the selections. And then we can all criticize the College Football Playoff Committee together. We can do that together. All right. They've got a tough job. They do. They do it well sometimes, and other times they do it extremely poorly. But before that, we will be here live every night. So tonight, previewing Conference Championship weekend with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football because of you. Like one of our callers says, he asks the worst questions imaginable. The worst questions in the world, he asks, so I can provide the best answers. I don't know what that means when you provide the best answers to the worst questions. That said, we've got Conference USA and we've got the Pac-12 tomorrow night, and we will be here right after the Pac-12 championship game. And then on Saturday, yes, we will be here following the late games, which are the Big Ten and the ACC championship games on Saturday night. It all starts at noon. I may go live during the day. I may provide some instant analysis videos, which seem to do much better than the live. So the live streams are the lifeblood of this channel with all of you. And that's what I love to do more than anything else. But if you know anything about YouTube and how it works, being YouTube pushes video traffic much more than it does live stream traffic. So I tend to go with the instant analysis videos on game days before we do our big wrap-up show, call-in show with you. This being a call-in show as well, 860-499-3332. I got to get hooked up with the earpiece before we go there. And we will here in just a second. So it's, again, I'm sure somebody has written this in the chat, but I won't go there right now. And I'm going to slap myself upside the head once I see this. How could I forget? The Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky taking on the Roadrunners of Texas San Antonio. Of course, it's the once undefeated Texas San Antonio team that was 11-0, now 11-1 after they lost to North Texas, and so deservedly in the top 25 for beating a slew of horrible teams by one score. All right, yes, Texas San Antonio kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern time against Western Kentucky for the CUSA championship game at 7 p.m. Eastern time on CBS Sportsnet, if you can find it. And then 1 hour later on ABC. I don't know how this worked out in the Fox/ABC negotiations. This is interesting because Fox has aired every Pac-12 championship game since the first one. Unless ABC took it last year. I don't think they took it last year. Ever since the inaugural Pac-12 championship game, Fox has the Pac-12. But, and of course, the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the Big 12 have their primary contracts with Fox and secondary contracts with ESPN. Although I'm sure the Big 10 contract is more sizable than the other two by far. And then, of course, the SEC and the ACC, their primary contracts are with ESPN and then their own ESPN, SEC, and ACC network. So I was surprised to see that. Utah, Oregon, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Then we'll be back here live. Then it all starts on noon on Saturday at with the Oklahoma State Baylor Big 12 championship game, and not to be forgotten, the MAC championship game. We have also released our preview video with Steve Helwick from Hustle Belt, SB Nation on Northern Illinois and Kent State. Check that out. All right. So I will be here at your beck and call to respond to any of your comments or any of your questions concerning any of the championship games and anything in college football. So before we hit the phones or I look at any of the comments, there were a few things that hit me in the world of college football. The biggest news of the day had to be that Bronco Mendenhall is stepping down at Virginia. I was shocked when I saw that. Shocked would be a bit of an overstatement. But Bronco Mendenhall doing relatively well there. Virginia doesn't win in football generally, so what he is doing there seemed to be acceptable for Virginia. He's a good football coach. He did an outstanding job at BYU, comes all the way across country, and even though that was a questionable hire, not because of his abilities, but because it just didn't seem like a good fit, he steps in at Virginia. They were on the rails. They were horrible. I guess they were off the rails is what they were. They were off the rails. Let's get our cliches down better. Off the rails. And 2-10 his first season. Then I guess he put them on the rails. They won the ACC Coastal, which somebody's got to win the thing. The ACC Coastal 2 years ago in 2019. And he had built a nice little program there at Virginia. They almost won the division this year. They lost the last two games of the season. Otherwise, they had won. They had destiny in their hands those last two games of the season. And now here we are. And he has decided to step down. So I've not looked at the article to see if he gave any reasons, because I don't think he's that old. He's 55. Said solely it was his decision to leave, which I would think that it is. I would have loved to have said that there's been this buildup and a long amount of epiphanies and thought, but clearly this week there was a sense of clarity to me that I needed to step back from the college football and reassess, renew, reframe, and reinvent with my wife as a partner, our future and the next chapter of our lives. I was requested to stay by our athletic director. I was requested to stay by our president. It was my decision only. 36-38 in 6 seasons. Again, this is Virginia football. 36-38. He was doing a good job. This is not exactly Penn State or Michigan here. 2019 ACC Coastal Championship. New Year's Six appearance against Dan Mullen's Florida Gators. 6-6 this year. Yeah, that was surprising, but here's a man, you got to respect this. This is a man who's looking at his relationship with his wife, his life, obviously in a financial situation in which he can do this. So this is a good thing. So these coaches sell out. They completely sell out their lives. Let's realize that when we criticize these coaches and talk about them. No amount of money can replace time. As was famously said on one of my favorite TV shows of all time, you can always make more money. Easier said than done, of course. It's difficult to make money, but you can always make money. You can't make more time. It's impossible. Time is invaluable. You can make more money, can't make more time. And so these coaches, they work these jobs all the time. We'll see these videos come out right before the football season, right before conference media days. So before the Power Five have their media days, in particular the Power Five, they all do, but we focus on the Power Five for the most part here because, again, as I stated earlier, nobody watches the group of 5 videos. So, and it hits me the same way each year because the coaches then at conference media days, they may release a video or something on their vacation, and then they go right into conference media days and boom, they're back at it, where basically they had like a long weekend vacation. They finally got away from college football, had a weekend, like a long weekend with their family, with friends to relax, totally get away from college football. And I bet they don't. I bet most of them don't get totally away from college football. And then they're back at it. It is a 360-day-a-year job. So let's all remember that. And whether they're making $7 million or $9 million or Lincoln Riley money, they're at it all the time. I know that it must have been the game that I saw on Monday night. The NFL game on Monday night was Redskins and somebody else. And they were talking about the two coaches saying that they had spent Thanksgiving with their families for the first time in 25 or 30 years because they had a game on Monday night, gave them an extra day and a half to prepare. And so they gave their teams Thanksgiving off, and they were able to spend Thanksgiving with their families. Again, I will guarantee, I would bet $100 on it that neither one of them spent their entire day with their families. I bet they texted, emailed, had phone calls, watched tape, did something football related, whether it be for 30 minutes or 3 hours, something that day. Sponsor, the voice of college football. That could be your Christmas good deed. Sponsor, the voice of college football. Whether you own a business, our numbers, and this is thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of you out there, our numbers for our videos in November were up from 240,000 last November, 240,000 views for the month. That's on the main channel, not counting the team channels. Just on the main channel, 240,000 views in November of 2020, 240, 348, 108,000 view increase for this November. So appreciate you being here. Welcome in. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Super Chat's available. Also, of course, I'm going to go through your comments. This is one of the reasons why we are the voice of college football. We're not going to go through that argument. I've had that once or twice. Am I the voice of college football? Are we the voice of college football? You know what? Both. And because you have a voice. And it's my aim to give you more of a voice than anywhere. So I'm going to hook up here, and I'm going to see if we've got anybody making. Has anybody called yet? I'm going to feel very lonely and unimportant if nobody's called. Oh, we got a stack of phone calls in here at the Voice of College Football. So let's get right to it. And I'm going to have to hook up here. I should do this before we start the live show, but truth be known, I hate wearing this. So for, let's see what, it would have been about 9 years. For 9 years, I had to wear one of these twice a day, every day. 6 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news. For 9 years. And now that I do this, I can set it up my own way. I don't need to listen to a director anymore. But with the phone system, this is the best way to do it by far. And but so I delay this as long as possible to put this in. I just do. Don't like it. At least I don't have to wear makeup anymore. Although I'm sure I would look, it would even out the skin tone. I would look much better. All right, folks, let's go here at the Voice of College Football. First up on Conference Championship Weekend. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Willie. Glad to see you tonight.
Hey, Willie.
Want to talk to,
yeah, what's going on tonight? Thanks for calling.
well, I just wanted to talk a little about the Big Ten championship game going on and why Michigan shouldn't be ranked number 2 in the country just because they beat us. They shouldn't have flipped us. They should have been probably went to 4. But I have some statistics here that can prove my point.
Okay.
And I have my prediction for the Big Ten title game. I've been listening to all these Michigan podcasts here. They think Michigan is something special because they beat us and it's their big year. I'm going to take Iowa 20-17. I think it'll be a close game. Michigan won't be able to handle the success they had against us. Their plays probably will be shut down by Iowa's run defense, and they'll have to throw. And I think they'll probably have a turnover or two, and Iowa will come out on top.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is Ohio State and Michigan had 6 common opponents. In those 6 games, Ohio State outscored their 16 games by 32 points a game. And Michigan in their 6 games outscored their opponents by 12 points a game, including 4 games that were a touchdown or less. And at the end of the season, they blew out Maryland, but they barely beat Penn State. They lost to Michigan State. They had a 3-point game against Nebraska on a fumble recovery where we blew these teams out. So basically, they jumped us and got in all this national picture because of a 30-minute second half against us. That's basically what these statistics seem to be telling me. So,
all right.
What do you think about that?
All right. This is what I think, Willie. If you checked out the video that I made, which runs through, in a sense, what you're talking about, but I'm comparing Michigan and Iowa because those are the 2 teams playing.
Uh-huh.
So I am not necessarily picking Michigan to win. I have yet to make my prediction. I need to do that very soon, obviously. But Michigan is a better football team than Iowa. That doesn't mean they're going to win the game, but I'm convinced that they're better. That doesn't mean they're going to win. Like you say, I think there's concern out there that Michigan's hung up on their win against Ohio State, and they're going to have a huge letdown. I also think that Iowa's a tough football team, and I think their coaching staff might be better. I think that's debatable, but so if you match up Iowa and Michigan, and again, I posted a video on this where I went through their common opponents. They have 6 common opponents, and Michigan outscored those 6 common opponents by 117, Iowa by 60. They gained many more first downs. I don't have the numbers in my head, but they had a better first down differential by, I think, 4-1. More rushing yards, more passing yards, everything except for Iowa had a better turnover differential than Michigan. So I think Michigan, I think it's easy to see by the results on the field, and Michigan played a tougher schedule, that Michigan's a better team than Iowa. But that doesn't mean they win. Now, if we're comparing Michigan and Ohio State, I guess I'm not completely understanding. I'm understanding your point that you still believe Ohio State's better than Michigan. Is that what I'm getting from that?
Yes, I do. I still believe that. I think if we played them 100 times, we'd probably beat them at least 65.
Okay.
Especially after how we saw the first game.
Okay.
But I'm not saying Michigan doesn't deserve to play in this game or we should fire Ryan Day or anything like that. Michigan deserves to be in the championship game because that second half they put us on it.
Yes.
But
so I completely agree with what you just said. I said before the game that Ohio State would win 65 times out of 100, and I still generally believe that, although I was quite a bit taken back on how they bullied Ohio State all over the field in the entire game, but especially the second half, because Ohio State's defense did have 3 consecutive stops in the first half. It was more the second half, of course. And Ohio State did have a more impressive season than Michigan up into that game.
What do you think about them moving Michigan all the way up to number 2?
Well, if you looked at my top 25.
Because they beat Ohio. Yes.
Well, that answers the question.
4 myself.
I got Michigan at 2. I don't rank it based on the Ohio State game. I base it on the entire season.
I think since I've watched Cincinnati play all year, and Cincinnati won't be pushed around by Michigan if those 2 teams meet up. The advantage Cincinnati will have over Michigan is their quarterback can move. He doesn't stand in the pocket and throw. he runs run option plays, and he's very good at getting away from traffic in the backfield. And they have a tough defensive line. Last year in the bowl game, they took Georgia down to the wire. They had some poor play calling, or they actually would have won that game.
Okay.
Now, I'd like to know, when you said you checked Iowa's scores, Iowa had a couple games in there where they were just terrible on offense. They had a couple games, I think, with only 6 points or 7 points.
A couple like 10.
10. Yeah,
I'm joking a little bit, but they
team,
basically haven't had many good offensive games.
Well, they don't have much of an offense.
No.
They don't have much in the they're a defensive team. That's why I think it'll be a big change for Michigan. Now, the only thing I'd like to see what you think's going to happen is, say Iowa does win that game, and Michigan would, you think they'd still be ahead of us in the rankings?
Can I address a few other things that you said before we hit that? The thing that I'll say about Cincinnati and Michigan is there are different ways to approach rankings, and this is just the way I do it. I'm not making a prediction when I make my rankings. I'm basically just telling you that Michigan has a better resume than Cincinnati. That's all I'm telling you by saying Cincinnati's 5 and Michigan's 2 in my rankings. I think Cincinnati's 5. They might be 4. They're 4. Cincinnati, I believe, is 4 in my rankings. And yes, Michigan's 2. All I'm telling you is that Michigan has a better resume against better opponents. I'm not making a prediction about if they played. So that's number one. Number two, the thing I'll say about the Peach Bowl game, and it was a game in which, as you remember, if Luke Fickell would have managed the clock, and I think Luke Fickell's a tremendous coach, but he did mismanage the clock right at the end of the game, Cincinnati would have been able to run out the clock and win the game.
They kicked out Cincinnati's left tackle on a terrible targeting call.
Okay.
And he's playing in the pros right now, and he got kicked out in the third quarter.
And they were also missing a safety who is playing in the pros right now who opted out of the game. But do you know how many Georgia players missed that game? 12.
Oh, good. Well,
they had 12 players sit out of that game. So I think that I'm not going to try to project what would have happened. Cincinnati played an even game with Georgia. There's no question about that. So Ohio State was better than Michigan against the other teams that they played. I think they had 6 common opponents as well. Yeah. And they were just better.
But Michigan had 4 games. Michigan had 4 games this year where they were within a touchdown or lost. And that's why I don't think they should be ranked number 2. Because Alabama's basically done the same thing. And I think if and I know Alabama's played tougher competition than Michigan has.
You think?
I still say the SEC East is probably the toughest conference.
You mean the West?
The West, the one with Alabama and LSU. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you, if Michigan does lose to Iowa, would they still be ranked ahead of Ohio State?
I hope so.
Okay, then that would put them in the Rose Bowl. Because the highest ranked Big Ten team goes to the Rose Bowl unless they're in the playoffs.
They'll have a better record.
Iowa's definitely not. Iowa's not. If Michigan loses, they'd have 2 losses. We'd have 2 losses.
Yes. But they'll be 11-2 versus 10-2, and they won the game head-to-head. Yes, Michigan will be ranked ahead of Ohio State.
They go to the Rose Bowl.
Correct.
What bowl would that put Ohio State in?
No, they would go to the Rose Bowl if Iowa goes to the playoff. Iowa would go to the Rose Bowl.
I would go to the Rose Bowl.
Yes, as the Big Ten champion.
So we'd probably go to the Citrus Bowl then?
I think Ohio State would make a New Year's 6 game.
Okay. That means we probably get an SEC opponent. We might play Mississippi.
Well, a Citrus Bowl would and an Outback Bowl would. Those are SEC Big Ten games as well.
Well, Mississippi's quarterback's already said he's not going to play.
Did he really?
Yeah, he said that before the last game.
Wow. Okay.
So
that's big.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably going to be more guys sitting out after this weekend. Who do you like in Oregon, Utah?
Well, I'm going to have my prediction for our Patreon folks. I've not made a prediction on that one. You know what happened the first time around?
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to beat a team twice, but I've seen all the good. All the good teams seem to be able to do it, especially at this level. It's not like the NFL. Well, anyway, Mark, that's about all I have to say to you tonight. I was getting calls and people were telling me they had listened to the show, but I was hogging too much time. So,
well, you don't listen to him, Willie.
I don't want anybody to think out there I said we should get rid of Ryan Day.
Okay.
I never said anything like that.
All
He's
right,
just
Willie.
like a baseball player that had a bad game.
That's it.
So, have a good show tonight, and I'll be calling you this weekend.
Thank you, Willie. Appreciate that. Have a good one.
You too.
Oh, see, it happens every time. Somebody has said goodbye. I say goodbye, and I shut them off, and then they keep talking. So for anybody listening that does that, just understand I'm not trying to cut you off, but it may sound rude, but that's what it is. All right. Next up on the Voice of College Football, who's on the line? Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hey, Mark, it's Dominic. How you doing?
Hey, Dominic. How are you? What's going on?
I know much. Just wanted to talk about the SEC championship game between Georgia and Bama.
Okay. That's why I'm here.
So,
Yeah.
So for the season leaders in passing yards for Georgia, Bennett, and for Bama, Young, I'm going to have to say both quarterbacks have been good. I mean, Stetson Bennett has less passing yards than Young does. After Young playing for Alabama, Bryce Young. But here's the thing. Bennett has one more interception than Young does in the stats.
Okay.
Throughout their career, that is.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to go with the upset and say Georgia has a chance to beat Alabama in the SEC title game.
Dominic, Georgia is a substantial favorite in the game. That would not be an upset. Georgia is the favorite. Alabama is the underdog.
Right. Sometimes I get a little caught up on myself, and this is what happens.
Oh, that's okay. You've done your research. You know Stetson Bennett's stats. You know Bryce Young's. I'm going to give you another little tip, Dominic. Don't get so hung up on the total passing yards for each quarterback. If you can find a stat that shows their pass per attempt, that will be a better indicator of how effective they are, whether that be their QBR or their passer rating or their passing yards per attempt. And then, of course, like you pointed out there, their touchdown to interception ratio is very important as well.
Right. You gave me an awesome tip. Thanks, Mark.
Sure, Dominic. You have a good night.
You too.
Dominic with a little quarterback comparison there. I like that. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, what's up, Mark? Happy holidays. It's Ballard.
Ballard, happy holidays to you. Between holidays right
best
now.
Time of the year. We got, yes, sir. Best time of the year, best month. We got conference championship. You know, I've been talking quite a bit with Georgia fans, and as you know, I'm an Alabama fan. You know, I'll ask you this: I think if Alabama wins this Saturday, and hear me out what I mean when I say this, I think it's the upset, not like of college football history, but upset of the year is Alabama beating Georgia. And I say that in all credit to how good of a team Georgia is. Now, nobody's unbeatable, but if anyone's close to unstoppable, this Georgia team is pretty darn good. But I'll ask you, I think that Alabama, they have to have an amazing offensive line performance. Now, I know it's going to be very tough, and maybe they could still even do their best and still not look like an offensive line that you want to see, because I know those pass rush guys, Jordan Davis, Adam Anderson, that Georgia has on the defensive front, they're really good. But what would you say is the big key to Alabama having success in this game and finding a way to win? Because I think our defense will be good. I think that we'll get some stuff taken care of defensively, but I'm really worried about the offensive line. I have not been very impressed with it all year long. I haven't been impressed with Doug Maroon, who is the offensive line coach. And even though Bryce and everybody's looking good on offense, play calling from Bill O'Brien has not been all that great either. So we really need to do you think we need to change some things up? Should we do what we've done all year, but just put a little more effort into it? Like, what does Alabama need to do to stop this? I mean, you're not going to completely shut down Georgia's defense, but they have to bring the best game they've had all year.
Yes. Yes, on all accounts. So, yes. Alabama is going to have to play their best game this season. You know what? Georgia is also going to have to play its best game this season. They are playing the best opponent that they have faced this season. Who's the best opponent Georgia has beaten this season? It's either Arkansas or Clemson. Those are two good teams, but obviously Clemson's not anything close to what they usually are, and Arkansas is a good team, improving under Sam Pittman, but they're both top 15 or 20 teams in the country. They're good teams, but they're not Alabama. Right. So
program-wise,
not just even program-wise. This particular team of Alabama's better than Arkansas. Obviously, they beat them on the field, but they also just have posted a better season, and Clemson's better than, or Alabama's better than Clemson this year. Okay, to your point, I would like to be able to counter that with something different that's the number one key, but you nailed it. Alabama, as I understand it, are having issues figuring out who's going to play right tackle and center in this game against Georgia. I watched the Iron Bowl, and Auburn's got a really good defensive front, but it's not nearly as good as Georgia's, and it controlled the game. The LSU game, again, LSU's loaded up front with a really good defensive line, but again, not anything close to Georgia's. And they were chasing around Bryce Young the entire game and limited. I don't remember. I think it was the LSU game. I don't remember ever seeing an Alabama rushing line like I saw in that game. That had to be the lowest in the Nick Saban era. They ran for like 1.3 yards per carry or 1.8. It was less than 2 yards a carry. It was awful.
It wasn't that great. Yeah.
The second half against Florida, that was the first, that was for me the first warning sign, the second half against Florida when Alabama couldn't run the ball. Had offensive line issues, and they haven't really corrected them. So that's a huge issue because Bryce Young is talented. He can maneuver. He can do all those things, but to do it play after play after play, you want your quarterback to be comfortable 3 quarters of the time, 7 or 8 out of every 10 passing plays to be able to, go through his progressions, but he's going to have to move and run away from a top defensive front, 2 or 3 times out of 10, but not every play. That's going to wear him down, taking shots and running for his life. And obviously that even good quarterbacks get forced into making bad decisions or making mistakes when they're trying to run away from defenders and getting closed in on the pocket. And, what tends to not get enough talk is obviously the defensive ends make most of the sacks, but it's obviously what a quarterback hates the most is that push up the front right in his face when he can't climb the pocket, when he can't step up, when he can't see. And Jordan Davis, obviously, as you mentioned, makes that difficult. So, yeah, Alabama's offensive line, the combination of the players themselves, but also the coordination between the offensive line coach and the coordinator calling the right plays to take some pressure off the offensive line are key.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Stepping outside real quick of the offensive line, but I do kind of want to stay on the offensive side for Alabama. So Nick Saban had his press conference this afternoon, and he was talking about the injuries. Let's not forget, it looks like Brian Robinson is, he's practicing, but he's very limited. He's questionable for the game. Alabama overall on offense, it seems like they got some good stuff on defense. Seems like most of those guys are healthy, but I think what's really going to kill us, and truly, I mean, there's quite a few guys that are going to have to step up, young and experienced guys. It's not going to be, you got Bryce Young. That's amazing. I'm hearing stuff about Damian Dalcourt or whoever stepping up on the offensive line. There's going to be a few new faces on the field this Saturday in some positions, and that really has me worried. I mean, and again, Alabama and Georgia, they recruit really good talent. But just because a player is talented doesn't mean you can put him on the field and he's going to perform spectacular just because he's a five-star. I mean, they could, but, they're going to have to play some young, inexperienced guys who haven't really gotten much action this season, and they're facing the toughest test on offense in their playing career right out the gate. So, I'm really worried about that because, it's one thing if we're playing like New Mexico State like we did a few weeks back and we have some injuries. It's like, well, it's New Mexico State. We can beat them with a kid off the street. But this is Georgia. So I think that's also a point where Bama is really at a disadvantage is the number of injuries, especially on the offensive line and everything. A lot of young guys got to step up. I have faith in them. But overall, when you look at that, Mark, isn't that where Bama needs to worry the most is the number of inexperience that they're going to have on the field?
Well, now it's not the time to worry about it. Now it's the time to work with it to get it ready to play. Worrying about it's not going to do any good. They're going to have to develop those players and just give them it's a coaching cliche, but they're going to have to play within themselves, meaning that is Nick Saban and those position coaches' responsibility and their expertise to know this player is capable of doing this. He is not capable of doing this. Therefore, we're going to ask him to do this. And that's what we need him to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What's so great too, and I'll leave you with this though, and I've kind of said this because of the off season, I don't necessarily joke about injuries. I never want anybody to get hurt, but it was funny in the off season hearing Georgia fans talk about George Pickens, and then around June or whenever, we're a couple months until the season starts, he gets injured. I wasn't laughing at the fact that he got injured, but clearly I think if he's fully healthy, I think he is the best receiver that they have and the best offensive weapon. And I kind of joked with, just like jokingly, I told Georgia fans, I said, your season's already done. You just lost your best player. But I know that's not the case. What's so great is both of these teams, because of recruiting, is next man up mentality. It's not going to be as good as maybe your first string guy, but you can always count that they're going to have a guy talented enough that, he can go in and play and do what he can to help the team. And that's just how it is in football. And I think we're going to see some interesting plays and players this Saturday. Mark, happy holidays to you. Thanks for taking my call. Let's go beat Georgia. Roll Tide.
Thanks, Ballard. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, let's keep it rolling here with the voice of college football. Again, Conference USA and Pac-12 tomorrow night. I'm sure you will all be watching and focused on the Pac-12 championship game. Welcome in. Who's up next?
Hey, Mark. You know me as Minnesota Dave, but today I'm Michigan Dave, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay. Because you hate Iowa. That's why.
Well, no.
Okay.
More personal.
All right. I'll shut up. I'll let you go.
My cousin is a diehard Michigan fan.
Okay.
My family's originally from Michigan, and my mom and my dad and I moved to Minnesota. But my cousin is a diehard Michigan fan, and unfortunately, he has brain cancer. We don't know how long he has to live. So this might be the last time that he would be able to see Michigan win a Big Ten championship. Yeah, he's been going through a lot. His wife also left him, got a divorce, shaky. Personally, I think she's a total, begins with C, ends with T. And, I'm going to be rooting for Michigan. I'm happy that the Iowa fans are happy that that Wisconsin's not in it. I'm happy that Wisconsin's not in it, but that's where it all ends today for that. But yeah, I was looking at bowl games, and is there a chance that we could be playing Tennessee in either Music City or Outback? I'm overhearing that from Minnesota fans.
Well, considering Minnesota's 8-4 and would be about the 6th seed behind Iowa and behind Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan. So that's there are 4 teams that are definitely in front of you, and then you can't just look at the record because if a bowl wanted, let's say, Penn State at 7.
A lot of the bowl games are not looking at records; they're looking at revenue.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I was in the process of saying.
And I think Minnesota has always had a good traveling when it comes to the South to go to bowl games.
Okay, as I was saying, yes, the particular bowl will look at the most attractive matchup and who they want. They can't go grab a 7-5 team instead of a 10-2 team. They can't do that. There are certain stipulations involved depending on the bowl, depending on the conference, but they can go like a seed down or a 1 record down, win-loss record down to grab a team. So maybe somebody would want Penn State more than Wisconsin or Minnesota at 7-5 versus 8-4 and go grab Penn State, for example. But otherwise, Minnesota's in that 6 or 7 range, and Tennessee, do the standings in the SEC the same way. Seems as though that's about what it is.
All right. And another prediction I'm going to make is, I know you guys don't really talk about Mid-American Conference football that much, but
I posted a Mid-American Conference video today.
Oh, I did not see it. Sorry, I was more excited about the Notre Dame, because also know I'm a Notre Dame fan. I was more excited about finding out who our new coach was. I'm kind of happy we got this guy. We hired inside the staff, which makes me very happy.
Yes, check out our Kent State Northern Illinois preview. It would make me happy.
But I will check. Yeah, I'll check that out. I'm picking Northern Illinois to basically crush Kent State.
Okay.
It's not going to even be close. But you have a nice day, and I will talk to you later, Mike.
Thank you so much, Minnesota or Michigan. Have a good night. All right. Pac-12 and Conference USA tomorrow night. How about that? Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
To the man that gives college football its voice, the voice of the people, Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
The voice of the people. All right.
Yeah, well, that's right.
I can only go with so many nicknames, but we'll take that. We can add that on. I like that.
Well, to the people that love college football, you're their voice. Let's put it that way.
Very nice.
And there you go. Us college football fanatics. I have to say, by the way, it's interesting. I see all the TTUM fans in the chat now have all of a sudden come out and wearing the team colors, supporting the team, awfully happy. High times for them. I know it must be good times. I hear you. I hear you out there. By the way, it's good that we got Steve Dace out of an Iowa movie theater now on, and he's going to continue to watch the game now. I think we're all happier about that, right, Mark?
Sure, I'm happy about it.
I'm sure he is too, right?
Now, what if Michigan loses the Big Ten championship? How are they going to feel about that season? They finally got past Ohio State and celebrated like it was 1999, like they say. But then they lost the Big Ten championship game.
Wouldn't that be a Jim Harbaugh kind of thing to do, Mark?
Well, he lost some NSC championship games, so I guess, sure. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know if Michigan, he's never played a championship game at Michigan, so I don't know if that would be a Michigan thing.
I haven't gotten a chance to see your previews, and I know you've done Big Ten championship game previews. But I do have to say this. Unless Iowa gets like 5 or 6 turnovers, I'm going to have a hard time seeing them scoring enough points to win this game. Or maybe they get something going on special teams, because I just cannot see them driving the field to score, 21 to 24 points or somewhere in that neighborhood, which is where I think they're going to need to be around at least to win this football game. I mean, is that fairly your read on this one? I think you would tend to agree. At least I thought I heard you say they're going to have a hard time moving the ball in this one.
Iowa can't move the ball against fill in the blank. They have had they had a good offensive game. That's the category I'll put it in. It was better than decent. It wasn't quite prolific, but a good offensive game way back when against Maryland, which everybody does. So other than that, everybody else, they were awful, like atrocious, awful, pathetic against Wisconsin. They were right in that same category against Purdue. 2 games in which they scored 7 points in each game, 7. The Penn State game, they scored 23 points, and Penn State didn't have a quarterback for almost 3/4 of the game, and that obviously affects field position in that. So they scored a whopping 23 points against Penn State. Illinois, they were a little bit more productive. They hit a stretch here. So it really got bad when they lost back-to-back to Purdue and Wisconsin. They were just couldn't do anything, awful. And then the game that they finally won to break that losing streak, they were even awful in that one against Northwestern. They beat Northwestern 17-12. And they needed to pick off a pass in the red zone at the end of the game to preserve a win against Northwestern. And then they got a little bit better against Illinois and Minnesota and Nebraska the last 3 games a year. They were functional. They were okay. And that's where they stand right now. And, I looked at the points per game statistics, and defensively, Michigan's 18th and Iowa's 20th. They're within fractions of a point, so they're basically the same defensively, but offensively in points per game. And I'm not a full believer in this statistic, but it's just an indicator. Michigan's 13th in the nation in scoring, and Iowa's 87th. They just don't. They score 25 points a game, and that's the defense scoring 5 of those points on average per game. Their defense, Their offense is averaging less than 21 points a game.
Well, look at the early games, Mark. Even against Iowa State, Indiana to open the season, a lot of those wins early on were built off turnovers.
Yes.
I mean, they weren't moving the ball, putting up 500 yards in total offense and marching the ball up and down the field. I mean, they got some defensive scores in those games. And they obviously got some scores off turnovers. So, yeah, I mean, barring, the team up north turning the football over, and McNamara, other than, was it 3 interceptions this year? I know he threw the one against Ohio State, but he's been, pretty protective of the football most of the year. So unless they start putting the ball on the turf and fumbling, or McNamara plays out of character, I just can't see Iowa generating enough offense to win. And their defense could maybe make them hang around for about 3 quarters. But again, I still think they're going to have to generate somewhere in at least the low 20s in points to win this game, and I just don't see it. I will say this about the SEC championship game. A good friend of mine's a Georgia fan, and I have to say, if you're not getting Nick Saban in Alabama this year, then you're never going to get them. I will say it will be interesting to see if the Alabama passing game can challenge the Georgia defense. I mean, how well Young looks. They should have Jamison Williamson back. He got thrown out of the game against Auburn, did he not? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay, so he's going to be out the first half.
No,
of the SEC title game.
He was targeting in the first half, so he's back.
Okay. So well, that's huge because he's been a big part of their offense this year. So I think that having him is certainly going to be a help. Yeah, I just think Alabama is going to have a big game out of the quarterback to have a chance, because they haven't shown the ability to run the football the entire year. I mean, you think it pretty much hinges on his shoulders, Mark?
Yeah, they can't run the football against anybody recently, at least. And Georgia's got the best rush defense in the country. It just doesn't add up for Alabama. The only things that add up is that the talent is there, and that the greatest coach of all time is there.
Right.
Those are the things that we know historically, more so.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's Alabama basically has a quarterback that's better than Georgia's quarterback. And I know they don't play against each other if you're talking about matchups, but if you're just comparing units, Alabama's got a better quarterback, and they've got comparable wide receivers, and Georgia's got a better everything else. Now, the linebackers in the secondary are comparable, but Georgia's still better. And Georgia's way better on the offensive line and the defensive line and at running back and at tight end, and they're just better.
See, the reason, because bottom line to me, it takes a great quarterback to usually crack the code of a great defense.
Mm-hmm.
I always give, the greatest example of all time in the history of football is who's the only team to beat the '85 Bears, Mark?
Dan Marino and the Dolphins.
Right. And that was the right quarterback on the right day.
Yep.
Caught that defense, and he was the only quarterback to crack the code that year. And usually, as a quarterback in a passing game, that has to do so against the defense.
True.
That's why in the past, when Saban defenses have been lit up, it's usually been by big time quarterback play. So,
and it's probably also a combination of it's a matchup. It's a matchup that we've got the right quarterback, and we have a good enough offensive line, and maybe they played their best game of the year to give him the time. Plus, we figured out the right play calls to get the ball out of his hands, to get the ball in space with our play. We did all the right things to take that slight advantage and emphasize it exponentially.
Right. Well, obviously Ohio State's defense held them back, but I did think that our passing game in many ways was something that would have given us possibly a puncher's chance. But
well, that's what Ohio State have, David, don't you think? If Ohio
What's that
State
again?
couldn't throw and catch like they do, that game would have been completely out of control.
Oh, sure.
And
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
think of the play that Ohio State converted their last touchdown. It was a 4th and 5, I believe, and they
right.
threw the little swing pass out to Travion Henderson that just eluded Aiden Hutchinson's grasp by inches. And he takes it to the end zone, and it's 35-27 with 4.5 minutes left. And I'm thinking, Michigan has outplayed us this entire game, and we still have a chance to steal this game because they can throw and catch. And that's what kept them in the game. Those 3 wide receivers kept them in the game. And that's rare, I think, that wide receivers keep you in the game.
Well, Mark, I mean, what happened in 2018, if you want to be perfectly honest? That was not a great Ohio State defense. They didn't necessarily run the football very well that year. I mean, it was just really Dwayne Haskins, his arm, and Paris Campbell and Terry McLaurin and those receivers that really got Ohio State where they were. Now, their defense played a little bit better at the end of the year, but once Nick Bosa was done for the season, that defense really went downhill. To be honest with you, even when he was in there, it wasn't that great. So, that team was really carried by its passing game.
True. Absolutely true. But the difference in the defensive performance this past Saturday and in 2018 is that in that Michigan game, the defense played well early. Ohio State got a big lead, and then they just traded scores. So that 39 points was a lot of fluff versus this 42 points was Michigan just pushing Ohio State down the field. I don't think they had a 3rd down in the second half.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, also, I think that Harbaugh finally wised up and finally got rid of Don Brown and got somebody probably intelligent to run his defense.
Yep.
I think that may have helped them out a little bit too. I wanted to get to the coaches real quick before I let you go, Mark. The situation with the Notre Dame situation and hiring Marcus Freeman, obviously from an Ohio State perspective, I think most Buckeye fans would have loved to have seen them, back up the Brinks truck and do whatever it takes to get Marcus Freeman as his defensive coordinator. I didn't think that was going to happen. I had thought, like a lot of other people, I don't know what your feelings were, Mark. Did you think that it was likely that maybe Freeman went to Cincinnati and then Fickle to Notre Dame, or did you kind of know ahead of the game that might not happen?
I thought that if that happened, then it was obvious that Notre Dame really desperately wanted Fickle and that he was by far number 1 on their board, because hiring a young coach, an up-and-coming young coach, obviously put Freeman at a place where he knew, I'm not going to be the head coach here. It was almost an understanding that Brian Kelly was going to be the Notre Dame coach for 2 more years, 3, 4 more years. And then if everything went well and he did his job at the same rate and continued for his star to soar, that Marcus Freeman would be the next Notre Dame coach. So by making the Fickle move, it would have spelled the end for Freeman at Notre Dame in some way.
Yeah, I just thought that, Fickle was kind of a hot hire. I thought that might be, and, obviously you could see what he's done at Cincinnati, so he had the track record to back him up. I can understand them wanting to keep Marcus. I mean, he's a great coach. I think he's going to do a really good job recruiting there. And obviously would have loved to have had him at Ohio State. I just thought he would have had to have, like a lot of coaches where you go to the smaller school, then you get your bigger school job, and then you go from there. But apparently they wanted to keep him. I saw you speak to the guy from Irish Breakdown, and I think that might have been inside the AD's mind there at Notre Dame, that we can't afford to lose this guy. I mean, I think your read on that might have been right.
Yeah, that was my thought.
Last thing, real quick on that Oklahoma situation, you do think it's going to be Venables there? Have you heard anything different?
I think it's Venables' job if he wants it. But I spoke with our Clemson guy today and posted some of those videos. he does not believe that he believes that there's just so many indications that Brent Venables wants to be a coordinator, and he's listening. He's listening to the Auburn situation from last year. He's listening to the Oklahoma offer, but he has gone as far as move not only his entire family to Clemson. Obviously, he's been there for a long time, but he's even moved his parents and I believe his in-laws from wherever, Oklahoma possibly, to South Carolina, and bought them homes. And just his kids go to the university, his kids go to high school there. He has, a family that's of that age, and he's never apparently he's just always liked to be a coordinator and doesn't want to mess around with what it takes to be a head coach. It's just a completely different position, different role. He wants to be a coach.
Well, I was.
he doesn't want to be a politician.
Okay,
He wants to be a coach. Apparently, none of us know this until the decision's made, but that's what the thought is, because he's never taken a job. He could have taken all sorts of jobs, but he hasn't.
Right. Well, to me, the most obvious choice for them is in their own conference. I still got to think it's Matt Campbell.
I think it is too.
Okay. He was supposed to be the hot hire at the beginning of the year. Mark Rogers and Steve Gates picked Iowa State to win the Big 12, right?
True.
So, everybody was on him. I think it's obvious. He knows the conference. He knows the territory. I don't know. Time will tell. All right. Well, as always, a pleasure, Mark. You have yourself a good one, my friend.
Thank you, David. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
Take care.
So, folks, if you own a small business, or you would like to own a small business, if you're interested and think, hey, I would like to do this or that, but you don't know how to get started, you know that in your line of interest that to own a small business and run a small business would take this much money, X number of dollars, and you don't have it. And maybe your personal credit's not what it should be. I would like you to check out Get Business Credit. Get Business Credit. It's right here on YouTube. So when you get done here, you can do it right now. You've got my permission to leave the show right now. Go to Get Business Credit, and our guy Josh Van Horn has a line of products. He will be able to point you in the direction and give you access to lines of credit. Thousands, as I understand it, thousands of lines of credit. They're at Get Business Credit. So if you want to own a small business or own a small business, and many of these type of ventures, you would have to reveal your social security number. And a lot of people, especially in this day and age, if you know anything about cryptocurrency, you know why it was created. That in this day and age of hacks and such, that you don't want to give away your social security number, you do not have to. So Josh Van Horn over at Get Business Credit right here on YouTube. I'll put the banner up here in just a second. So I would advise you to head on over there. And I know that he's doing good things and helping a ton of people, because his channel is blowing up way past mine for sure. And certainly before we take our next call, Mr. Kyle Pickett's in the building, and we are thankful that he is. Mark, you most likely win that bet, and I'll pay for those who won't. So that bet would have been, that was a long time ago. I said whatever I said about a bet. I don't know what that was. Regardless, thank you, Kyle, so much for the Super Chat contribution. We will get to some other ones here. Kyle, thank you so much for that. And let me pick these off while I can. Because if I don't get to these at the right time, then sometimes I'm not able to go back and post these. Man, there's a lot of comments. I am passing hundreds and hundreds of comments unfortunately, but can't get to all of them. Maybe we'll start running a 24/7 stream. We'll just run a stream all the time. It won't stop. And then I'll just kind of check in and out. I'll sit down and check in. We'll do a couple hours together. Then I'll go produce some videos. I'll go get some lunch. I'll go get my workout. Then I'll come back for a few more hours. And we'll just keep it running. Maybe we should do that. Next up, with our super chat coming in right there, Kyle Pickett. Happy birthday to Kyle. Kyle, would you like me to sing happy birthday to you or not? Would it be more of a present for me to sing happy birthday to you, or more of a present if I refrain from singing happy birthday to you? Please let me know, Kyle. And you'll have to probably put that in caps for me to find it in the chat right now, because there's so many comments. And we appreciate that. And we know that most of those comments are you guys having conversation there, which is why it's there. So Kyle, happy birthday. Everybody wish Kyle a happy birthday. Kyle, a faithful viewer. Thank you so much for the contribution there, Kyle. I guess I should be giving you a gift, a monetary gift for your birthday, Kyle. So it's working in reverse. Thank you so much. I guess I'm paying you with content. That's what we're doing here. So happy birthday to you, Kyle. And if you would like me to sing for you, then everybody, at your own risk, you can either listen or you can tune us out for about, what's it take, about 45 seconds to sing happy birthday. So we will leave that up to Kyle. Since he's a birthday boy, he gets to make that call. Next up here, let's get this to the screen. Get Business Credit. Here's our guy right here. This is phenomenal. Josh is here tonight. Great to see him. Get Business Credit. Man, with all the people that watch this show, which is typically about 400 or 500 people that we've had online recently, and man, let's keep it blowing up. So you guys have done an amazing job recently of getting more people in here, the voice of college football. So thank you so much for that. But let's do even more. So grab 3 or 4 college football fans. Let them know, hey, this is the time to get in on the voice of college football and bring them into the live streams. We're going to be here tomorrow night and championship Saturday night and Sunday for the playoff rankings reveal. We will be here Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday at noon Eastern time for the rankings reveal. And then, of course, you know that we will go crazy previewing the playoff games and the bowl games. I love the bowl games. We will preview all the bowl games. I released all the conference championship previews today for the conference championship games for the group of 5. We still have some other ones to get to here. So I had a conversation today with Uncle Lou. So that's going to be posted first thing in the morning. Uncle Lou and myself talking Georgia, Alabama. We've got, we had a live stream with Georgia, Alabama with our guy Zach today. Check that out. We have delivered so much content on Michigan and Iowa. It's ridiculous. So look at the Iowa and Michigan channels. They are just flooded with previews. I also sized up the matchup between Iowa and Michigan based on their performance against common opponents. And somebody apparently likes that because in a day, that video got about 25,000 views. So I appreciate that. And I would like to do the same comparison between Georgia and Alabama. I've done the work. I just got to produce the video. I've done most of the work. I still have to produce the video, and it's almost Friday here, so I better get to it. So be checking that out. And we were supposed to have on a guy from the Pitt 247 Sports platform today, but we had a misconnection there. And what other championship games? Baylor and Oklahoma State. I don't know any folks that cover Baylor or Oklahoma State, so we came up short there. Our Oregon channel, we did an Oregon live show on Tuesday night. Check that, or it was on Wednesday night. Oregon Live. There's your Oregon preview. We talked to Utah as well, of course. So we got to everyone except for that Big 12 game. So Get Business Credit with Josh right there. What's up, Mark? And Voice of College Football sponsor here. Sorry, Mark. Daughter's birthday. And then I got sick. We'll get back to you soon, but keep promoting. Deal is solid. Thank you so much for that, Josh. I appreciate it. And we are promoting here, and you're a good guy, and you are helping folks out every day. And your channel's blowing up. We hope that you're okay. We wish your daughter happy birthday. So we've got Kyle's got a birthday, and Josh's daughter has a birthday. My son, I was supposed to celebrate my son's birthday. I was going to take him out for a steak tonight. And unfortunately, my son's got an eye infection. So we're going to have to put off the steak dinner for another time. And I was looking forward to that, but he has an eye infection. So, Josh, thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. And before we get to our next call, let me make sure we're not missing anything here. Next up, who do we have here? One Scoop John. One Scoop John, you're amazing. Thank you so much for the support. Appreciate you so much. All right, Kyle. You inspired me to join the party. Prediction still Michigan 24, Iowa 10. Job isn't done yet. Let's go get that Big Ten trophy. Great job as always, Mark. One Scoop John, thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciated so much, sir. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Kyle, for inspiring One Scoop John. And let me see. Anybody else? Anything else that I've missed? Whoa, hey. Got our boy Kyle coming back here. Sing it. I didn't mean that you had to contribute anything, Kyle. You could have just stated that somewhere. Somebody would have told me. Not really. It's cool. I don't need recognition. Do I sing it? Don't sing it. We should take a poll. Because I've never been embarrassed singing. I will sing in public for anyone. That doesn't mean I can sing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying I can sing. I can sing just good enough to be dangerous. You know, when somebody is an awful singer, but they're kind of bold about it, that it's kind of funny, that they're a horrible, horrible singer. And then, of course, you want to hear good singers. You got good singers. Then you've got like people that are so bad, but they're out there. They're bold. So it's kind of funny. I'm unfortunately somewhere in the middle where I can generally carry a tune, but I'm not a great singer. So it's like, Mark, we don't want to hear you. Oh man, we got more calls coming in here at the Voice of College Football. I never know how many because I only see the 3 that the system shows me here. But at least 3 on the line here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Wilton Notre Dame fan here.
How's it going tonight?
It's going good. Goodbye and good riddance to Brian Kelly.
All right. It may work out for you.
Yeah. Well, I just really think that Brian Kelly was like holding this team back, and that the offensive coordinator couldn't call the plays that he wanted, and he never really set the team up for success in the big games. Like there was a win over Clemson last year, but that was an extremely depleted Clemson team that any top 15 team should be able to defeat. So I'm just happy. Like he did a great job building the program up from where it was when he got here in 2010. But I just think that it's time to move on. Even though he didn't move on at the best time, obviously it was during a college football playoff run. But we don't have to deal with him anymore. And we have Marcus Freeman here. And the recruiting since he got here, especially on the defensive side of the ball, has been much improved. Like now we're number 4 overall for the class of 2022. I don't know if they'll stay that way with BK leaving, but I'm very optimistic about the future of Notre Dame football.
All right.
And
I'm glad that you're taking it well.
also-
And I think most Notre Dame fans that I'm aware of pretty much share your sentiment.
Yeah, and also the fact that all the assistants that were doing their jobs well and recruiting well are coming back as well. And it looks like that they're going to take a run at, I can't think of his name, the Ohio State wide receivers coach. So if we could pick him up as well, that would be great. And also we have a good offense. We're trying to get Chris Watts to be our offensive line coach with Harry Heastand, who is very successful at the job before mentoring him. At least that's what it looks like it's going to happen.
So Marcus Freeman's going to
Very
go after
confident
Brian
that
Hartline,
coming
the
in.
Ohio State wide receivers coach, to be the wide receivers coach at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know Marcus Freeman's been.
They were
played
teammates
together at Ohio State.
Sure.
Yeah, they're teammates. He's been. I know, according to I think Bucknuts reported it that Marcus Freeman is at least talking to Brian Hartline to try to move him away from Columbus. So if he could pull off that too, it would be a home run. But I know Brian Hartline is very connected to his school. Just as Tony Reese is at Notre Dame. So if that happens, that'll be great. But if not, at least he went after him. Like Brian Kelly would never even try to coach someone like that away. Anyways, can I fire off a couple other non-Notre Dame related questions?
Sure. Go to it.
So, I know this feels like it's a year ago now, but the Ohio State-Michigan performance, was that the worst Buckeye performance in the big game since 1993, would you say? That
Since 1993? Is
Yeah,
that the
the
worst Ohio State
28.
performance since 1993 in the game? Not any game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not any game.
Okay. 1993, 28-0. Yes. Yeah, because basically anything from 93 to 03, those were close losses. And then after 03, they didn't lose except for 2011. Yeah, absolutely. It is.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think? Do you think that Brennan Armstrong, since Rocco Mendenhall left, do you have any sources that he might be transferring to another school? Because I would say he's like one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the country. That would be huge.
Yeah, so with the news
for him.
coming out today, I would think that a lot of players, especially since they were recruited and signed by Bronco Mendenhall, would look at that. I don't know what Brendan Armstrong's interest is in leaving Virginia otherwise, but I would think that the probability goes up exponentially since his coach is leaving.
And would you say that Baylor has about a 40% chance to win against Oklahoma State on Saturday?
Do I give Baylor a 40% chance?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. I watched the first game, and Oklahoma State, I can't remember where the game was played. I think it was played at Baylor. But it was a game in which Oklahoma State was clearly the better team, but it was not anything close to a blowout. It was a competitive game, and that was a long time ago. That was the 4th or 5th game of the season, and I think Oklahoma State's a better team. But yeah, I'll go in the 35 to 40% range. And we never know what the factor could be that Oklahoma State knows that it has to win to go to the playoff, whereas Baylor still playing for a conference championship, which is extremely important, may play a little looser since they don't have that on the line.
And will you be watching USC Cal? Pac-12 After Dark.
And I'll make one more note on the previous question about the Big 12. We also don't know. Much is being made about the Michigan letdown effect following Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Think about Oklahoma State. Pretty much same circumstances. Never beat Oklahoma, 2-14, and now they finally beat them. So that again, they were partying late into Saturday night, and the letdown, their potential,
I bet they would.
and now taking on Baylor. And it apparently, and I underline that word apparently, being difficult to beat a team twice in one season, even though I have yet to see anybody really pony up the statistics on that to prove it. But anyway, if you believe in that theory, yes, Baylor beat them once. And then we get USC and Cal. They're playing at like 10:30 that night.
11.
11 o'clock.
11 p.m. Eastern.
That being the last regular season game, except for Army Navy. If I wasn't sitting here doing this while that game's on, absolutely I'd watch it. And I will DVR it, but I DVR a lot of games that I never get to. But heck yeah, I'll watch USC and Cal. Why not?
And, All right, Mark. Well, that's all I have for you tonight. But thank you for taking my call, and have a great rest of your night.
Yeah, thanks for calling. Always appreciate it. Appreciate the super chat coming in as well. We've got Ultra on the line. Hang on, Ultra. Hang on. Let me see here. There's a lot of words there. Who has more motivation entering this game? Alabama needs to win to make the college football playoff, you'd think, but Georgia has lost 6 in a row, and it's kind of now or never for them with Bama. Okay. First and foremost, Ultra, that's a great question. Tremendous question. And yes, historically, Alabama owns the series with huge wins, monumental wins in 2012, 17, and 18 in particular. But Georgia, they have to know at this point. The players are on social media. They've heard all the talk. They know what the projection is that they are in the playoff regardless. They can lose this game 42-0. They'll be in the playoff. They've had the best regular season. They will only have one loss. They're in the playoff. So, yes, that is a tremendous question. One that really I can only conjecture. I can give you my thoughts, but nobody knows. A lot of questions come in like this. And I don't pretend to know, because anybody that tells you that they know doesn't know, is playing psychologist, amateur psychologist, and even the professional psychologist wouldn't be able to tell you for sure who owns the motivational edge. But it's a great question. So Alabama does need to win. So tangibly, I would think Alabama should have the motivational factor in their camp leading into this game, because they have to win. We think they have to win. We think they have to win. So you wouldn't think that it would be close. But yes, I don't know how much these players, I think it depends to a man how much they carry history on their backs. I think it depends on the player. Some of them are somewhat oblivious to what's happened before their time. They know the history of the schools, and they basically, in some senses, and I know that I'm going way back before social media, so this was a different time, but I know that when I would interview the players each week, and for 6 years it was Alabama players every week, they basically found out their college football history, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, through us. Because they would be like, yeah, really, I didn't know that, or wouldn't have known that Tennessee's beaten us 7 years in a row, except you guys keep telling me. So some of them wouldn't know that without them being told. I got to think that Alabama being told all week that the motivation of what you just stated, they have to win. And they're expected, just the letdown or the not meeting expectation at Alabama, missing a playoff more so than anywhere else, is huge. You don't want to be an Alabama player and say, we missed the playoffs, because shoot, we could be sitting here in 20 years and Alabama's made 16 of 20 playoffs, especially once it gets expanded. Forget it. And so you don't want to be on the Alabama team that missed a playoff, although they did 2 years ago. And then they've got to win. But yeah, Georgia, they have to be reminded constantly of the Alabama hex. Great question. I would say it goes with Alabama. Here we go on the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hello, it's Dylan. How you doing tonight, Mark?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Michigan. I know you're an Ohio State fan, but I'm very excited for my Michigan win. I went to the game. It was very snowy, but I wanted to say something about Iowa. I just don't see us losing at all. Iowa can barely put up points. They versus Wisconsin. I would rather versus Iowa than Wisconsin any day. I bet you agree with that too. But
yep,
especially right now. But I just don't see Iowa putting up points. I really don't. I feel like they're gonna mess up. They don't even know who their starting quarterback is half the time. I'm pretty sure, right?
You are right.
Having the big injury.
Kirk Ferentz
doesn't Iowa have
told us who's starting, but you're right. They have swapped them back and forth for about 5 weeks now.
And also, there's gonna be a lot of Michigan fans at that game. That does get into consideration. I was watching you guys at the Michigan, the Michigan show on here, and that does go into big consideration because this is the first time Michigan's ever been there. I could see Michigan lose maybe a game down the line, but this game I just feel like it might be a blowout.
Well, it makes sense. Michigan's a better team in so many regards. Iowa is a tremendous defensive unit. They turn the ball over, meaning they turn over the offense, but Michigan doesn't they don't turn it over. Cade McNamara takes care of the ball. Any way we slice it, I can go through all the matchups. Michigan's a better team in so many different ways, but that could have been said about 50 different big games in the past that the underdog won. So I would not be shocked by an Iowa win, but I don't expect it.
And I've been looking at stuff. If this is a close game, you never know. If there's a whole bunch of losses, Michigan can still technically make it if a whole bunch of teams lose in this championship game.
Run that by me again.
I said, if a whole bunch of teams lose, even Michigan, there's still a chance Michigan can make it in. Because, we beat Ohio State. Ohio State probably has no chance to make it in. But I looked at ESPN, and there is a slight chance that Michigan can still make it in if all those big teams lose. But likely that's not going to happen. I was just putting it out there. But you never know. College football is a lot crazier than the NFL. Anything can happen.
You think college football is crazier than the NFL?
Oh yeah, anything can happen.
Really?
And Michigan might win it all. You don't know.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
I do.
You're telling me that college football is crazier than the NFL when we know what 5 or 6 teams are going to play for the college football championship every year before the season starts, and practically half of the playoff teams in the NFL change every year. There are 12 NFL playoff teams. Now it's up to 14. Hang on just a second. We've had over the last 30 years, 12 teams make the playoffs in the NFL. It's now up to 14. And more than half of them are different every year in a 32-team league. The NFL is far more unpredictable than college football.
Well, I just like college better, at least from now on, because, I'm a Lions fan, so you know how that goes. But another thing I wanted to put out, because no one's ever asked you yet, do you think Aiden Hutchinson, if he has a big game, like 3-4 sacks in this next game, you think he can win Heisman if Alabama quarterback doesn't play well? I
tend to say that he can't or won't, but he should. He should be considered heavily I'm now thinking that he's going to get an invite to New York just to be nice to him and just to show him some respect, but he really doesn't have a chance. But I believe that if this award is supposed to live up to its name and the description of the award to be given to the best player, not the best quarterback, the best player in America, then we need to start looking at it differently, or they need to change the award.
Yeah, because I mean, the only defensive player to ever win it was Charles Woodson on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it's not the best player.
So, but no, it's always the quarterback or the running back. But yeah, and also, do you think Michigan, if because I know the matchup, because it's most likely going to happen, in my opinion. I don't think Cincinnati has any chance. I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but I don't think they have any chance to make it to the last game. If Alabama loses, they're out. So my opinion, my prediction, I'm a Michigan fan. I think they're the best out of Oklahoma State, even Notre Dame. You think Michigan has a chance out of all the schools that possibly can make it? You think they're the best chance to beat Georgia?
Yes.
In the national championship? Huh?
Yes.
And do you think that? And you think what does it come down to if Michigan does get all the way there? I was really curious because I don't, like I said, I don't see Michigan losing to Iowa. And they're most likely going to verse Cincinnati. And Cincinnati, I don't think deserves to be in there. They might be left out, so that could be a whole different story. But do you think what's the game plan for Michigan for them to beat Georgia or any team really?
Well, I think that these are very similar teams. They're heavy offensive line teams. I'm going to go to the place on the field that most people don't talk about much, but the offensive lines for both Michigan and Georgia are exceptional. They might have the two best offensive lines in the country. And that creates just tremendous running games, and they both have it. They're both 3 deep at running back. Georgia's 4 deep. It doesn't matter, though. 3's plenty. And they might have the 2 best running back rooms in the country. And so it's going to be a bloodbath, physical football game. I got to say that after I watched Georgia quite a bit early in the season, they just haven't played the kind of games that I would want to see. So I saw them play Clemson. I saw them play Arkansas. Those were early this season. I saw some of the Auburn game, I guess, in Kentucky. I think that Michigan is going to, their pass protection is going to be key against Georgia, and vice versa with the 2 defensive ends from Michigan collapsing on Stetson Bennett. Now, Stetson Bennett's a little bit more mobile quarterback than Cade McNamara, but I'll take McNamara as a quarterback who's going to protect the ball better than Stetson Bennett. And I think he's a better passer than Stetson Bennett.
Yeah. I just feel like, in my opinion, someone's asked me why Cincinnati doesn't deserve to be in a college football playoffs, actually, in the chat. Well, can I say that real quick?
Sure.
They've had a lot of close games with teams I've never heard of. Because I do pay attention to all teams, but there's some teams I don't hear of it often. They're really close games, and if they're the best team, they should be blowing them out of the water every game. Maybe not 1 or 2, but every game. Notre Dame, they beat Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's unpredictable. They have been. So but I just really feel like I think Oklahoma State's a better team. I don't know if you agree with that, but
I do. They have a better resume. I know that. I don't know if they're a better team. They definitely have a better resume. They have played better opponents. It's not even close.
It'd be really cool to see I just don't see them beating Georgia either. If it comes down to it, if Georgia beats Alabama, which we don't know, and it's going to be Georgia versus Cincinnati most likely, unless someone else, something around there, or it'll be Michigan versus Cincinnati. But if Cincinnati gets blown out, do you really see it? I just don't see them really being in there. Should it be in there if it's a blowout? If it's more than 20 points, it just proves that they shouldn't be in there. I really feel like Oklahoma State should be in there because they're in a good conference, for one. They're in a good conference. Do you really hear about the conference for Cincinnati ever? No. I don't ever hear about him. I mean, that's just my opinion.
All right, very good. Anything else for me?
One more thing.
Sure.
One more thing, actually. Do you think Michigan can continue to beat Ohio State? Maybe not every year, but you think it'll be more competitive after this new coaching for? I think on the defense they changed it from John Brown or whatever his name was.
Do I think
You think
Michigan
it'll be more competitive?
Oh yeah, I do.
Okay. I was wondering because
sure do.
there's a lot of my Ohio State fans that are just saying we were lucky and all this other stuff. And
That was not
I know
luck.
that you're Ohio State. No, I know. I was at the game. I mean, they did go offensively, but Ohio State's defense was not good, and I guarantee you they're going to change it for next year. They're probably firing that defensive coordinator, or I don't see any way they're not gonna. But what can you do? You think Michigan? Do you think Michigan wins tomorrow? Well, technically it's tomorrow. Do you think they win?
Well,
I mean, I know you can't give a score prediction right now, but
yeah, I'm not going to give a score prediction just because I like to honor the folks that are on Patreon and I give my picks there. But I think Michigan's just they're a better team in every possible way, except Iowa might have a better secondary. That's it. I think Michigan's better at every position than Iowa.
Yeah, and one more thing with all your other shows, do you ever do call-ins for those? Like for the can you ever do the call-ins for them? No?
We could, but it does cost $15 or $20 every show just to do call-ins.
Oh, I see. I understand. I understand. All right, Mark. I'll be calling in again soon. Maybe are you doing a call-in show on Sunday?
Yes. So the playoff rankings will be revealed on Sunday at noon. So we'll be here Sunday at noon.
All right, I'll be calling back. All right. You
Sounds
have a good rest of your night. Go
Appreciate
Blue.
it. He had a point in there that I was going to respond to, and now I forget. I believe the four best teams in America are Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, and Ohio State. So if the playoff committee is just going to select the four best, I'm not saying that they should be selected. I'm saying those are the four best teams in the country from my perspective. The problem with Cincinnati is that I do not want a team playing an entire college football season that goes undefeated and has no opportunity in a playoff, because I think that's why we play games. And it's ridiculous to set up a team for failure in that way, to say you play in a conference, theoretically, you are playing for a playoff spot, but you won all of your games. You even went out and scheduled two difficult games. The Indiana game did not turn out to be such, but you went out and scheduled two difficult games on the road. You won all your games. You went 13-0. You're not going to the playoff. I don't like that. I don't like that scenario that a team does everything that it can with what they have and they win all the games and we still don't allow them to the playoff. But the problem is that if you compare Cincinnati and its resume to Oklahoma State, if they beat Baylor, Oklahoma State has a better resume than Cincinnati. It's not even close. So Oklahoma State should be not left out of the playoff. The problem is we don't have enough spots. We don't have enough playoff spots. It's an invitational. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? Hello. I hear somebody's on the line, but I can't quite hear you.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay, so sorry, man. Had to get my son to hand me a phone. This is Ricky from Dothan.
Ricky, what you got?
Yeah, roll tide, Mark, roll tide. These Georgia fans, they don't know what's coming for them.
They don't.
No. We out here. We done smoking the hog. We getting it ready. We getting it ready to go. They got the whole part. We got the whole part coming in now. I'm gonna hear my son. My son. He's helping me get together, get the party ready to get going.
Nice.
And we gonna roll all over them Georgia Bulldogs.
Can I come on over to the party? Am I invited?
You are invited, man. You come on down to Dothan. You know where Dothan is. I'm sure you've been down the south.
I've been
Alabama.
down to Dothan. I've at least
you
been
get stuck,
in the
you
vicinity.
get stuck in that circle. You get stuck in that circle going round and round Dothan, trying to get Panama City. Probably.
It's been a while. It's been a while though.
Yeah. You looking like you probably in your mid 40s, something like that. It's probably been a while since you went down to Club Vila or something like that, trying to get to Panama City. But
yeah, Panama City.
Yeah. So oh yeah.
Muscle
I
Shoals.
won't keep you on
Destin.
I won't keep you on too long. I've actually only got like probably 52 minutes left on my cell phone. On my cell phone, I prepay.
Let's try to squeeze in a conversation in 52 minutes. We can do it.
Yeah. Well, I can keep a little bit. I got to keep a little bit of time left. My wife, she pregnant with them twins, and I might need a little bit for emergency. She get a little mad at me if I burned it all up on talking to Mark Rogers. No, I did tell her though that I wanted to name one of my sons Mark and the other Rogers on the twins, but she said Rogers wasn't quite biblical enough, so I don't think that she gonna go for that unless your middle name might be something a little more religious.
Well, let's go with Matthew. If we're gonna go with Mark, go with Matthew.
Now I might be able to talk to that Matthew. My oldest, he's sitting there helping me. He's sitting there helping me actually fix the satellite dish because she got on there. Chantel's her name now. She's the love of my life, but she sat there and she got on that Facebook Marketplace and she bought Malachi one of them 3-wheelers, one of them Yamaha Kawasaki, I think it actually is. But she bought him one of them ones and gave him an early Christmas present. He got them running the freaking satellite dish. So I'm out here right now with Ezekiel trying to tune that thing in. And just so we can have a good, because the whole park's coming over to the game on. I'm sorry, man, I'm a little nervous right now, but the whole park's coming over to the game on Saturdays, so we can watch them Bulldogs go. Because I'm watching people like Uncle Lou and these other people, and they just, I can't wait to take it. Just give it to them. Just give it to them Georgia fans. And roll tide. That's all I got to say because they going down, man. They going down. Do you agree with me, or you
going down?
Georgia's
Well,
got a chance?
I save those predictions. Nobody wants to hear my predictions. I'm always wrong, so I don't like to give out my predictions. I don't want to send anyone astray. But I appreciate the call. You have yourself a good time. Have a good party. I'll stop by if I possibly can.
Mark Rogers, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, buddy. This is Traveling Fools, man. I'm just joking around with you.
Well, I figured that. I jotted down. I jotted down the number, and I thought I'm going to save this number, and I'm gonna try to figure out who this is.
Yeah, man. Just having a little fun with you, buddy. Love your content, bro. Have a good night, man.
Have a good one, Traveling Fools. Appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
All right, buddy. See ya.
So we had some good acting on the other line there by Traveling Fools, but it wasn't. And I'm not saying that I can't be gullible at times. I will readily admit to that. But that one was pretty transparent. That was pretty easy to see. But then, you always have that thread of doubt, thinking, yeah, there are some people out there. Like when we've had Bobby Durkins on at times, our Clemson guy. If you guys are familiar with Bobby Durkins, Bobby fools a lot of people. It's pretty astounding. All right, super chat coming in. Appreciate this from Christopher L., who is asking, if you were a 2022 5-star recruit, position of your choice, and had the pick of any school you could go to, where would you go outside of Ohio State, of course? Oh, can't go to Ohio State. I can't go to Ohio State. All right. First thing is 2022 5 stars. So that puts me at, man, I'm about 18 years old. Boy, wouldn't that be something else? All right. If I could go anywhere. If I play defense, I think Alabama, I think Georgia. But man, there is part of me that does not want to go to a football factory and just be another cog, just be another line in the list of first round and NFL draft selections. Now, I'm not going to go play at Coastal Carolina just to prove a point. Who would I want to play for? First of all, I think I would want to play for Nick Saban, Mac Brown. I wouldn't have minded playing for Bronco Mendenhall. There are tons of guys that I would say I haven't totally got a great read on whether I would want to play for them or not play for them, where I would be neutral. The guys I would not want to play for, I don't want to play for at this point based on a few things here recently. Lincoln Riley, I don't want to play for Brian Kelly. I don't want to play for I don't think I want to play for Lane Kiffin. Don't think I necessarily want to play for Mike Leach, and I don't think those guys are bad guys. They're just really not my cup of tea. They seem a bit odd, a bit strange, a bit quirky, a bit kind of ornery, a bit kind of petty, a bit standoffish. Yeah, I'm not playing for them. Jimbo Fisher doesn't really rub me the right way. He's okay. Not playing at Texas A&M. Steve Sarkisian, I got no respect for him. Not that he's like a bad person or anything, but as a football coach, what has he done? What has he accomplished? I'm not going there. I'm not going to Texas and play for Steve Sarkisian. No. I'm going to North Carolina, or I'm going to Alabama, or from what I've seen here early on with Brian Harsin, I like Brian Harsin. I like Josh Heupel. Florida, I don't know much about Billy Napier. There hasn't been much on the national scene to really give that much. I like Kirby Smart. I think he's a class individual. Ryan Day, okay, but I can't go to Ohio State. I don't necessarily have a lot of faith in James Franklin. I love PJ Fleck. Do I want to, winter semester in Minnesota? That would be tough to take. I don't know if I want to go through, I'm good in September in Minnesota. I'm good in May. So first month, last month of the school year, fine. And then if I need to be up there during the summer for summer work, all that's fine. But do I want to be in Minnesota in school in November and December and in January and February? No, but PJ Fleck would be the guy I would play for. I like PJ Fleck. I like Brett Bielema. David Shaw's a class act. Hey, I guess if I'm a 5-star, I'm looking for an NFL career. So if this was circa 2015, maybe I go to Stanford and play. So if you got me nailed down to one, man, I really just don't want to go the layup route and play for Georgia or Alabama. I don't want to do that. I like Dabo. I'm a Dabo guy. I've got about 3 videos on here where I just lay waste to Dabo and just tell him what a knucklehead he's been and stupid things he said. But I think the man's a great football coach, and I think he's a great man. He says stupid things from time to time and whines and complains too much. But I like Dabo. I think he's good for the sport. I think I've really answered your question way too much, and this is typically what I do with things. And I guess this is why we do, why we've got a YouTube channel and why we talk college football and why we have call-in shows, because I can go on and on with these things and never really answer this one in particular, because I can't give you one if you don't give me Ohio State and PJ Flex up in Minnesota. Sam Pittman seems like a great guy too. So does Mark Stoops. And if I could go somewhere and make them a champion, help make them a champion, and not just be in the factory line of Georgia and Alabama, that would mean something to me. We've got another super chat. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate that so much. In 2016, when Iowa was unranked, they were 5-4. They had a record of 5-4. There he states it. They played Michigan, ranked number 3, 9-0 at Kinnick Stadium, and the Hawks won. We can beat them. It's been done before. Okay. Your point is valid on one hand. On the other hand, it's not valid. What's valid is you're right. Iowa can beat Michigan, not because of anything you stated there. The only variables that are consistent in that comparison are the two head coaches and some of the staff. Not much on the Michigan side. And that they wear the same laundry. Other than that, nothing else holds true. Not the location of the game, not the players on the field. But yes, Iowa's pulled off upsets. But Iowa, let's understand this. It's almost like when Purdue is being lauded for winning all these games as an unranked team against top 5 competition. Yeah, that's great. They pull off more of those kind of upsets than anybody in history, but that's because they're Purdue. They're unranked all the time. If you're Alabama, you're ranked all the time, so you can't be the team that's posted the most unranked wins over ranked teams or top 5 teams because you're always ranked. So you got to be Purdue. Iowa's got a great football legacy and tradition. It obviously does not compare to Michigan's, but I appreciate that you take some hope in that. And I think there's something to that. I take it more from the standpoint that Iowa's a great defensive team that's resourceful, and if they can somehow figure out a game plan, and they need to break tendencies. This is what I fear for Iowa. Kirk Ferentz is going to take the approach that if we squeeze the game, squeeze the air out of the ball, run down the shot clock, meaning the play clock, and we minimize the plays in the game, and mathematically that makes sense, and it's been accomplished. Maybe the best example would be Super Bowl 25. It's been accomplished in the past that way. And there is some credence to that. If you believe that you're the lesser team and the other team is better, then you want to play less football. But they have to be not so conservative at the same time. You can be conservative. You can play to win and still be conservative where it makes sense. The Atlanta Falcons in the second half of the Super Bowl that they blew the 28-3 lead to the Patriots, they could have stayed aggressive but been smart about it. They stayed aggressive but were stupid about it. You can still be aggressive in your play calling, but why do you snap the ball with 20 seconds left on the play clock when you're up by 25 points? You want to minimize the game and keep the best quarterback in history, or in my terminology, the most accomplished quarterback in history. You want to keep him on the sideline, you knucklehead. You don't snap the ball with 20 seconds left on the play clock over and over and over. You're only giving them seconds and then minutes. The Atlanta Falcons could have technically, if you go back and you add up all that time, they could have ended the game. And then the excuses after the game were, well, that's not our style. Our style is to be aggressive. You can stay aggressive in the play calling. But why play more football? Okay. Iowa needs to break tendencies to win. They cannot run on first down, run on 2nd and 8, throw on 3rd and 7 all the time. And I believe it's their history to do just that. And so I get it that they will, and some of that makes sense, but not all of it. They have to take some shots. They have to take calculated risks. That's a good point just generally in life with anything. You need to take calculated risks. If you're in the stock market, and you never put any money in the stock market, you just have an account and you got $1,000 and you just sit there, then you'll never make money. Well, if you just start picking stocks based on what letters look good, then you will most likely lose money. You obviously have a strategy, you've got a plan, and you can be aggressive, but in a smart way. Let's say you're aggressive with a stock. You buy a stock for $1 and it goes to $2. It doubles. Well, how many people out there, and I know that there are many, because I've even done this. You buy a stock for $1, it goes to $2. You've doubled your money. But you look online and you see that people are predicting it's going to go to $10 and you're thinking, oh, I could make 10 times my money. And you leave it in and it's at $2 and it goes to $2.20 and $2.30 and you're feeling good. And then all of a sudden it bottoms out and it goes down to 18 cents. And you're like, what do I do now? And then you sell it and you lost 80% of your money. And you're thinking, oh, I could have doubled my money. Well, what do? When you double your money, you take the portion that you've earned out of it and you let the rest of it ride so you don't lose. And the worst that can happen is you break even, but you also take the chance that you can make exponentially more. Why am I talking about stocks? I don't know. Gaming Tremor, thank you so much for the contribution. That is so much appreciated. I especially appreciate these people, not especially because I want you guys to comment and leave your questions and comments. But when somebody just says, hey, I got nothing to say, I'm just listening and just having a good time in the chat. And I just want to show some appreciation. Thank you so much for that. I think I'm forgetting how late we started this show. It's got to be like 2 o'clock in the morning. Traveling Fools. Love you, Mark. Traveling Fools. We'll have to ask you next time where you've traveled to. Have you made foolish traveling decisions? Hopefully not. Hopefully you're just traveling fools. Like you're so hung up and happy and obsessed with traveling, you are traveling fools. But you've picked some good destination spots. Thanks for the call, AKA Ricky, Traveling Fools. Appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Before we get to our next call, which we will in about 30 seconds, I just have to let you know about the fine folks at Get Business Credit. Where's our banner? We got to get our banner up there. Get Business Credit with Josh Van Horn. He does a tremendous job of letting people know that might be in the process of trying to start a business, grow a business. They've got a small business. Maybe they've started. So I made this platform a business, an LLC, quite a few years ago, just because I had the vision to do something big with it, to do something with it but I didn't necessarily do anything at the time. So maybe you've already technically owned a small business. You have a small business, but you haven't done anything with it. You haven't expanded it because you've got ideas and plans, but you're like, that's going to take money. Well, you can get your financing through Get Business Credit. Go to YouTube channel Get Business Credit. Find our guy, Josh Van Horn, right there, and he is going to give you the tools, the instruction, and the access to thousands of credit lines to get you started, to get you ready, so you can expand, so you can grow, so you can start the business that you've always dreamed of. Get Business Credit. Lock it in. Get on over there. Anybody that deals with helping people, teaching people, or helping them in growing finances or saving money, and if they've got a YouTube channel that is just taking off, it's a good indication. It's a great indication that they're helping people, because those people that they're helping are getting more people in there. And if you can help people make money, learn something, one of those things, then that's an incredible line of work. All right, let's take these three. Or maybe we'll take this one and find out if there are more people on the line here at the Voice of College Football, and we'll take some more calls. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? Hello?
Mark Rogers.
Yes.
This is Connor calling from Corvallis.
Hey, Connor. How are you?
Hey. Well, first off, I don't think probably half your callers know what ornery means, and you've used it about twice tonight. The only reason I know is because I work in an old home with a bunch of old folks. So
am I dating myself?
Ornery. Stubborn, right?
Okay.
Yeah, dating yourself. It's a very
ornery people are kind of agitated. They're kind of in a bad mood all the time. They look for any little thing to nitpick, and they're just kind of not pleasant to be around. They easily get agitated, irritated.
Kelly.
Yeah, Brian Kelly seems like he's, if you don't ask him the right question at the news conference and ask it with the wrong word, or you say the wrong thing, or maybe it's not even the right thing, he takes exception to it and he gets a little ornery.
Yeah, that might be his age also. Hey, so calling from Corvallis. Want to talk the Beavers. I asked you earlier this year if you could think of a coach that would turn around a program within 4 years like Jonathan Smith has, going from where UConn, Kansas are right now and going forward. I can't think of it happening again. I mean, it's the first bowl game in 8 years, and 4 years ago, Gary Anderson was fired. I mean, coming from the depths. I know it's the Pac-12, but I wanted to give a shout out.
Yeah.
So talking about the Pac-12, I know you've said multiple times that you think the ACC is a better conference. I'd like you to expand on that, because I don't know, if you look at the bottom of the pack, Arizona, I think, could take Boston College.
No.
Could take Syracuse. Okay, so maybe not Arizona, but Jed Fish is a decent coach.
Oh, they're all decent coaches. They're all decent coaches. So Dabo Sweeney's a decent coach too, and so is Scott Satterfield's a decent coach, and so is Mac Brown and Pat Narduzzi. There's all sorts of decent coaches. Okay, do you want me to explain why the ACC is better than the Pac-12?
Yes.
Okay. So you started out the conversation by setting up a bunch of hypothetical matchups that we'll never know, because that's all that is. You could argue that Arizona could beat Boston College, and are you right or are you wrong? Well, I think you're wrong, but that doesn't mean that you are wrong, because we don't know. So I'm going to give you facts.
So non-con.
I'm going to give you data. All right. So the Pac-12 is the only conference out of the Power Five that is under 500 out of conference. They're the only conference that has lost more games out of conference than they've won. And that's including against FCS and Group of Five competition. So so I produce a video, as I typically do every year after about 3 to 4 weeks of the season, because almost all the non-conference games have been played at that point. And I produce a video comparing all the Power Five conferences. And I use a bunch of different metrics, not just that, because it obviously depends on who you played outside the conference. Well, in the Pac-12's case, they have the worst record by far. The other conferences are winning 80-some% of their games outside the conference. And the Pac-12 is winning like 45%. The Pac-12 has lost more games by far against FCS and Group of Five competition than any other conference. And you tell me, after the Oregon-Ohio State matchup, who the Pac-12 has beaten outside of the conference that's any good. And I will give you one team, and that's LSU, and they're really not that good.
UCLA, yeah. Fair. We still have bowl games coming up.
Yeah, we
Oregon
do.
State, hopefully we'll get an ACC team or a Big Ten team.
Well, you will.
So going forward, the amount of money that the Pac-12 has spent on coaching, obviously you could point to USC, but even Washington with the hire from Fresno State, I think it's a good pickup. They're making bigger waves than the ACC, at least in the coaching market. And if you look at players out of California, if they stay home at USC is right back. I mean, they signed a 5-star running back today, but Lincoln Riley is bound to steal a lot more guys. So Oregon, USC recruiting at the top with the best. If you look at programs like Oregon State, I'm biased, but the coach is doing a lot with a little bit. So going forward, just with the splashes, with the conference merging, with the Big 12 falling apart, I think the Pac-12 within the next 5 years will have at least two teams in the college playoffs, USC and Oregon obviously being the favorites there. But David Shaw, you can never count him out, bringing back a bunch of smart 5-star kids. Utah, if Whittingham stays around, will be a force. I'm biased, and I just don't think enough people watch the Pac-12, especially from the East Coast. I'm from Georgia. So grew up, my sister, my brother, big dog fans. I was just there for the Charleston Southern game for that blowout. So I want to touch on them next, but first just wanted to shout out the Pac-12 because it's a lot of fun out here. Sports Chat 503 doing his thing. I know he's not he's the rival, but if we can hold on to the coaching, then going forward, I think the Pac-12 will be a force.
Well, I watch the Pac-12.
Force may be a strong word.
I watch the Pac-12.
Well, hey, let me touch on Georgia since you have ties from there.
Sure.
I hear a lot of people talking about Hutchinson, not enough people talking about Jordan Davis. He's in the Heisman race, if you ask me. If you put Hutchinson in there, you got to put Davis there, and I think Davis is probably a bigger threat to get to the quarterback. When you compare offensive lines, I think Georgia just hands down has the best everything in the country. So
they have the best everything in the country.
Anything, I think.
Wait a minute. You mean where? On the defensive front?
Offensive front, defensive front, wide receivers, maybe not quarterback.
They don't have the best wide receivers in the country. No. They play at Ohio State.
No, but if you were to, in summation, the Georgia Bulldogs are a step ahead of anybody else in the country.
Absolutely.
Steps ahead.
But they're not better at every position unit than everybody in the country. That's the only thing I was clarifying.
Okay, fair.
Yes, it's the
right
best
now,
team. They have the best team in the country. Absolutely.
So could we just all put it to rest? I mean, I know you have Michigan, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, perhaps Notre Dame. I just don't see any of these teams even competing to within 2 touchdowns of Georgia.
Well, I think that's fair. I hope you're wrong, but I certainly understand that evaluation because they have been the most dominant team in the country. The 2 best teams that they played are Arkansas and Clemson, who are not college football playoff caliber teams, and Clemson did play them very close. That was the first game of the season. But
so if I were to blow this out,
pardon me?
If I were to zoom out even more, it's kind of been the SEC for 20 years, minus Urban Meyer era at Ohio State. But I mean, early 2000s, you had LSU, but then Florida was a dynasty, and then LSU again, and then Alabama. I think LSU again, and now I think it's just going to be Georgia for the foreseeable future. With a guy like Kirby Smart, the SEC, whether we want to admit it or not, and I know you're a Big Ten guy, tries to put them close to the SEC, but it just has been a trend that the best team in the SEC has won the national championship. And I think Kirby's time.
Yep. Okay. Well, we don't know. We will wait and see. There have been a lot of projections and predictions by certain people when a particular program's on top that it's going to stay that way for a long time, and it rarely happens. But I do think that Georgia's a football factory. They're bringing in the best top 3 classes in the nation every year, and they're doing everything right. And right now they've got the best football team in America. When I make the comment that the Big Ten is close, I'm talking about based on results on the field, the Big Ten is arguably as good as or better than the SEC this particular season. I am not in a position where I would argue that the SEC is not the best conference. And what I mean by that is that the SEC is the best recruiting. It's not even close. The SEC then 3 to 4 years later produces the most NFL draft selections. That's not really close. The Big Ten's second, and it's been that way for a long, long time. 15 to 20 years, the SEC has produced the most NFL players, and the Big Ten's second. And they are in those 2 positions, and they're not challenged by anybody else. So for those 2 reasons, I'm looking at talent and saying the SEC is decidedly the best conference. But if we just look at the 2021 season, and a lot of our questions are going to be answered during the playoff and during bowl games as well, not just the playoff, because the playoff is going to be like 1 game at the max, 2 games where those conferences will play against each other, but probably just 1 game. So that's only going to tell us so much. That the Big Ten, if you look at the results outside the conference, have played just as good as the SEC. So that's why I'm saying that about the Big Ten this particular year. And we really won't know because they don't play enough games against each other.
Do you think that the Big Ten is closer to the SEC as far as that gap than the other 3 conferences? I can rephrase that if you want me to.
I understand. I understand what you mean. So I made the statement earlier, and I produce these videos again. I compare all the conferences and go through all the metrics, et cetera, that this was the first time I could remember where I was very confident that the SEC is the best conference. I was very confident that the Big Ten was the second best conference. I was very confident, actually, that the Big 12 was the 3rd best, the ACC the 4th, and I definitely know that the Pac-12 is the worst. Well, that's right. We just had that little conversation, but
use my language.
But this is the first time that I didn't say, man, it's close between the Big 12 and the ACC, or the ACC and the Big 12 or the Big 12 and the Big 10, or whatever. That I thought all 5 were definitely on their own level.
If you were to ask me, I would say it's the SEC 1, and then the other 4, you could do a toss-up. I mean, if you look at the Big Ten West, Oregon State. Oregon State should have beaten Purdue. Look at the West.
There's a key. So you're bringing up one game between like the 7th best teams in the conference and saying that somebody should have beaten but they, first of all, they didn't. I can go through. I could sit here for the next 4. I could sit here for the next 4 hours and talk about teams that should have beaten other teams. Well, they didn't. Number one, and it's one game. Okay, it's one game. So you're basing your argument for the Pac-12 above the Big Ten based on Oregon State should have beaten Purdue. Okay.
I see your point. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to stick with it. The SEC is 1, and then the other 4 are ladders below. The Big Ten West, if you were to compare then with the SEC East, which is the 2 of the lesser conferences, it's Georgia, and then the best the Big Ten West has to offer is Iowa.
Okay, that's one game. That's one game. Do you think that the SEC East with Vandy and Mizzou and South Carolina and those teams are as deep as Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Purdue?
So the Big Ten West is more competitive. That is my argument for the Pac-12.
That's not my argument that it's more competitive. You could have 7 horrible teams in a division and they could be very competitive against each other. That doesn't make it good. That's not my point about the Big Ten West. So if you want to argue that the Pac-12 is good because they all suck, so they're all competitive, then
let's just take the top 4 in the SEC and the top 4 in the Big Ten.
So hang on just a second. I'll let you go here in just a second, and I'll let you make your point as soon as I just make a point, because I want you to understand where I'm at. I've been doing this for a long time, and I think some people watch me for a few months and they think, oh, he's a Big Ten homer. Or there's people on here that think I hate Ohio State, which I think is hilarious, because then they find out I'm an Ohio State fan, and they thought for a year I hated Ohio State. Like, I had tons of people tell me you're an Ohio State hater. So that makes me smile, because I think I'm doing my job. So I will do the same thing that I do every off season, and I will look at all the conferences and go through all the results against each other, and not just say, okay, the Pac-12's 4-10, they suck. No, we got to look at the games and see who played whom and how they're seeded and how close was the game and all that sort of thing. There have been years, and again, you probably only watched me for a few months or a couple of years or whatever it's been, going back to like 2014 and 15, when the Pac-12 was getting beat on by the national media, and I was saying, no, that's not correct. The Pac-12 is better than everybody thinks it is, and this is why. A, B, C. So I'm not pro, like ACC people right now think I hate the ACC. I don't hate the ACC. It just sucks. But in 2016, it didn't suck. I said that I didn't believe that it was better than the SEC, but its metrics on the field were better than the SEC. And so I was saying the ACC is phenomenal, is really good right now. Well, times have changed. It's not good right now. And right now the Pac-12 sucks. But now go right ahead.
Well, I wanted to take the Pac-12 out of it because I agree that we are 4A or 4B with the ACC. We don't have to get back into it. But if you're just looking at the top 4 teams in the SEC versus the top 4 in the Big Ten, which I'd love to see it happen on the field.
Sure.
But after Ohio State, Michigan, I can't get behind Iowa and what their offense does. I've watched enough Iowa football. Wisconsin, Minnesota, they're all right along the same lines of like the Kentucky, the Auburn, the middle of the SEC. So if you just take the top 4 in the SEC and the top 4 in the Big Ten, I just think that the separation.
So understand that that's your perspective, and you're not basing that on anything that's happened on the field. You're just eyeballing that.
Well, growing up in the SEC, moving to the Pac-12, I've been able to remove myself from all the SEC homer all my friends growing up in the South that were just all SEC. And now I see it for what it really is. And I hate to say it, but the SEC's right. It's football country. I've been to most of the countries in the SEC. Sure, Ohio State and Michigan sell out. And their stadiums are huge. But the fandom in the SEC, it's literally religion. And I think that in now living in the Pac-12, and I see how poor the Pac-12 fans are, and that's why the Pac-12 is bottom. I just would like to reiterate the point that I think it's the SEC 1, and then 2 or 3 rungs down. Take Ohio State out of it. Michigan's having a good year, sure.
Why are you taking teams out of
until-
conferences? Ohio State's a member of the Big Ten.
I'm not taking. Okay. So Ohio State is like the Clemson of the ACC for the last few years.
Sure.
And I think that they're on a downward trajectory with Ryan Day versus where they were with Urban Meyer.
We'll see. It has yet to be proven, but we'll see.
So to reiterate, to bring it all back around, and I'll let you go because the chat's getting mad at me. The SEC has their recruits. They have the fan base. I would love the Big Ten to be competitive and to start winning some college football games.
You want the Big Ten to be competitive. The Big Ten is competitive.
in the playoffs. In the playoffs.
The Big Ten has been as competitive as anybody else
Besides
outside the
Ohio
SEC.
State. But okay, Ohio State, Clemson, sure, they're one-offs. But other than those 2 teams in the playoffs, it's been the SEC.
Sure, you're right. You need to understand that.
So
this is factual here. Even before the playoff, let's take the playoff years, and then even before the playoff years with the BCS. Let's understand one thing, that the SEC was dominant, but let's also understand that it's easier to be dominant when you're given more opportunities. And the SEC did not necessarily earn more opportunities, but because we play under a circumstance in which there's an invitational, the SEC has been given more opportunities. You can't not win a national championship when both teams in the national championship game are SEC teams. So when the SEC kept in 2011, when the SEC kept its string alive of winning national champion, well, of course they won the national championship. Both teams in the championship game were from the SEC. So they also lost the national championship game.
But you said that they didn't rightfully deserve to be at that table?
One of them did
SEC,
not.
I think.
No. They
Well, we're talking about a specific year. I'm just saying overall, since the playoff committee has started the playoffs, the SEC has earned the bias. If you look at the Urban Meyer years of Florida.
Well, basically, I know you didn't mean to contradict yourself, but it's an oxymoron to say somebody's earned a bias, because they either earned something or the other side is bias, is giving them something based on bias. So it's got to be one or the other. So either
true, but the
committee's bias,
subconscious.
the
bias is there.
I believe both is going on. Yes, that there is bias, but we go from season to season and we don't forget what happened the previous seasons, and that's how we should be evaluating football. We shouldn't be saying the SEC's always been the best, so we look at this season through the framework of the SEC's the best. No, we need to say what those were previous seasons. Let's start a new season. For this particular season, there's been nothing to distinguish the SEC far above the other conferences based on what's happened this season. The league is 8-6 against the rest of the other Power Fives. That is not dominant.
That's fair. No, I think if you were to restart every season and not look at previous results, then group of 5 would have a chance every year. We wouldn't be talking about Cincinnati not getting in. They would just be getting in.
Yes and no. In this particular season, Cincinnati was given a chance, and they were ranked so high because they were given a place that
Because
high.
they challenged Georgia.
Yeah, and because they've played so well previously. I want you to get the point that I do believe that the SEC is the best conference. I just think when certain things are in the mindset, I think it's closer than a lot of people do. I didn't say it was close. I think it's decisive. I don't think it's ridiculous. That I think when things get in people's, like, for example, Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time, and he may be, but there are people out there in the public that have no clue of what they're talking about, but they've had that ingrained in their brain, and that's all. That's the answer they'll spit out, and they really have no idea what they're talking about, but they've heard it their whole life, so they say it. And it's the same thing here. Most people don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're just repeating what they hear.
No, I agree. I think the chat's had enough of me. I'm sorry for playing devil's advocate.
Oh, no.
But
I enjoy it. So thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Pac-12.
Have a good one.
All right. Go Beavers.
So we've got an Oregon State fan who just called, who loves the Pac-12 and is hoping the Pac-12 is going to get better and believes that. And hey, Lincoln Riley coming to the conference is great. And but then he went on a big rant about the SEC, which that's great. I'm not criticizing him in any such way. And I generally agree with what he said. I try to bring balance and the other perspective, the other side of this, because it's often blown out of proportion. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Michael. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Michael. How are you?
I'd rather have gone through a root canal than go through that phone call. That caller really thinks that Oregon State should beat Purdue.
Yeah, I don't. I watched the game, and Purdue was up by 2 scores most of the game. I was at the game. Oh, you were at the game? Yeah.
No,
I watched the second half.
Yeah, there was no way. There was no way Purdue was going to blow that game.
Yeah, Purdue's much better than Oregon State. Oregon State's
I'm not saying they did bad.
Oregon State's not beating
Iowa. They had a
Iowa.
great season this year.
Oregon State's not beating Iowa. They did have a good season. That I give them a ton of credit. They're not beating Iowa, and they're not beating Michigan State.
True. All right, I got to ask you this. I gave you a homework assignment last week. Did you get a chance to work on it this week?
Was that the bowl projections? I'm sorry. That's
No, that was for the college football.
Okay.
That was for the college football playoff projection.
Yeah. I've been working my tail off trying to do as much as possible. So, Michael, I got to tell you, no, I didn't work on the college football. What do you want me to tell you? Who's going to make the college football playoff right now?
No, I'm saying if Michigan loses, Alabama loses, Oregon State loses. I mean, not Oregon State, but Oklahoma State loses. Cincinnati wins. I got to ask you this. Does Cincinnati move up from 4 to maybe 2, or do you think they're locked in at number 4?
All right. Georgia won. Cincinnati won. Michigan lost. Oklahoma State lost.
Yes.
Well, yeah, Cincinnati's going to be number 2 in the country. Well, yeah, Georgia won. Cincinnati's going to be number 2. Sure, they will be.
Yeah. All right. I was wondering now who's going to fill the last 2 spots in your opinion?
All right. If that happened, then we've got Baylor, Iowa. Notre Dame's going to be 3. And the committee better select Iowa. Okay, who wins the Pac-12 championship game?
I'm going to say Utah does. I think what happened was 2 weeks ago when they just beat the living you-know-what out of Oregon.
Yes.
I think that happens again tonight too.
Okay, that's right. This is coming back to me. And also, one more time, what is the score of the Georgia-Alabama game?
I think I had it, 24-13 or 24-14?
You know what I think? Oh, boy.
I had it.
The committee. Oh,
I had
Michael,
Georgia winning against 2 scores.
Michael, yes. I hope beyond anything that this happens. because this
This will
committee,
be so much fun.
this committee will go so crazy trying to figure out Baylor, Iowa, Bama. Those three, I'm telling you, Iowa
last
should
five.
go. Iowa should go, but they,
Mhm.
I think they're going to go on Bama's resume if they stay close to Georgia.
Mhm. All right, say like this is a 3-score win for Georgia. Then you got what? 3 teams for the last spot. Then
If Georgia wins by 3,
no, say like they win by 3 quarters, maybe like 31-7 or something like that, or 31-10.
yeah, then Alabama better not make it.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't even make it anyway.
Now,
if Iowa wins the Big Ten championship, they should be in.
Mm-hmm. Now, both, if I'm not mistaken, to add it, even though I don't see it happening, both Pitt and Wake Forest had 2 losses too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody discounts them, but they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have a chance,
but
unfortunately.
No, they don't. I was going to say, but no, I was just wondering the South Cincinnati. I think those 2 is pretty much locked. But let me ask you this: what about Houston? If Houston beats Cincinnati, why can't they get in?
You make a good point because they lost the first game of the season. They would have won 12 consecutive games and American Conference champion, but 12-1, that's not going to, they're not going to take Houston over a team from the Power 5 with only 2 losses.
Okay. But what happened? Okay. Say like they beat Cincinnati handily.
Maybe. I just don't think Houston, they don't have.
No.
You got to remember, Michael, they're not just going to be overwhelmed by one game. They're looking at the whole resume, and they should be.
Yep.
And Houston's resume is nothing special.
Because I think their biggest win was what?
SMU. Yeah, they've beaten a bunch of bad
and then,
teams.
of course, Cincinnati.
Yes.
Yeah, just like Cincinnati did. But no, I hope this happens because it is going to be 100% absolute chaos.
Yes, I want exactly what you're laying out right there.
Mm-hmm. And another thing is, too, as I was like, you were talking about other schools. Why not play for Coach Bum in West Lafayette when you talk about other schools earlier, when someone asked you that question?
Ask me about what other schools?
If you was a 5-star recruit.
Oh, yes.
Why not Purdue?
Why Purdue? I'm not knocking Purdue, but it's just
you were thinking teams like I'm gonna say Minnesota and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a good team and stuff like that. But I think the future is starting to turn around with Purdue and stuff like that. I think Brom's starting to get on the track and stuff like that. And I was looking at their schedule, and I shouldn't really do this, but next year is going to be pretty good. I would not be surprised if they're a double-digit win team next year.
If I was a quarterback or wide receiver, I would give them in that instance consideration.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now what about as far as like I know they had to beat down with Ohio State, but you guys say their defense was a lot better than it was in the past this year.
Absolutely, and that's why I didn't think Ohio State would cover that spread. I didn't even think about it. Mm-hmm. I thought Purdue's defense played extremely well in every other game of the season. I don't think they had a bad game other than that game.
Nope. And stuff like that. And it's like with the Wisconsin game when they lost by 20, I think it was, they played their butts off. It was just the offense couldn't get nothing going. All right, so I think is it the Pac-12 or the Cincinnati game is on tonight, later tonight?
It's Conference USA in the Pac-12.
All right, so it's gonna be another late night for you then.
Yeah, we'll be on after the Pac-12 championship game.
All right, and then I don't know. So do you think? Are you with me that you think Utah are pretty much do like they did a couple weeks ago with Oregon?
I have yet to pick that game. I think it's a toss-up.
Now, would the winner of that go to Pasadena, or do you think, or is there another bowl that Utah can go to, or regardless, whoever wins is going to Pasadena?
They are going to the Rose Bowl. Yes, the winner.
All right. Now, who do you think would be a better matchup? Ohio, like the loser of the Big Ten championship, and either Utah, Oregon, or maybe Ohio State and Utah or Oregon.
Well, I think a lot of people would be interested in seeing Ohio State and Oregon play a rematch. I would like to see, man, I like any of those matchups between either Utah, Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa. Michigan, Oregon would be an interesting game. I'm good with any of those matchups.
Now, is it last thing before I let you go? Is it possible both the losers of the Big Ten championship and Ohio State can meet in the New Year's Six?
Could meet?
No, could. Well,
oh yeah,
meet,
could be
well,
in the absolutely yes, they could.
But as far as playing each other, that won't happen, right?
In 2016, the Big Ten put 3 teams in the New Year's Six. Ohio State was in the playoff. Michigan was in the Peach Bowl against, or in the Orange Bowl against Florida State. Wisconsin played Western Michigan in the Cotton Bowl.
Cotton Bowl. But no, I don't think they can play each other. The conference can't have 2 teams in the same game in the New Year's Six, can they?
No.
Okay.
And
but
the bowl would not want that either.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hey, Mark, awesome job tonight, man. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
All right, take care.
You have a good night.
You're welcome. Take care. You too. Bye.
Love Michael coming on here. Purdue fan. That's phenomenal. So we've heard from, I love this, especially in recent months. We've had Wake Forest fans on here, Oregon State fans, Maryland fans, of course, with McD, Purdue fans. There's a couple other smaller, not small schools, obviously. These are all big schools, but you know what I mean. Not giant football powers that have fan base. Minnesota Dave, Minnesota fan there, that join us on a regular basis. I want to hear from these other fan bases. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
The real MVP showing up late tonight.
Yeah, I was part of that small school fan base club. I guess you can talk about.
You're
as
there,
a Kentucky fan.
Absolutely, UK.
So I'm not sure if you've heard, Mark, but I imagine you did. We extended our head coach until 2027, and the way his contract, Mark Stoops' contract, is written, is if he wins 7 games a year, he gets an additional year. If he wins 10, he gets 2 additional years. So I think based on the way it's written, he can be there probably to 2035 or something like that, based on the way how good our team's been and how our team is right now. What are your thoughts about that contract?
All right. My thoughts would be that 7 wins would not be any kind of standard that I would want to reward a coach for. So now if he really pushed and pushed and pushed, and I want to retain him, and we could make some kind of an arrangement that, okay, I'm going to pay you a little bit less money. Let's put it this way. I think you can hedge your bets both ways to say, I'm going to guard myself against a bad season or 2 or 3, and I'm going to pay you a little less money. You can guarantee that you're at least going to be somewhat successful getting to bowl games by winning 7 games, and will kick in. Meaning, let's say if the contract was the dividing line was $1 million a year. We know it's a lot more than that, but $1 million a year, and Mark Stoops wanted $1.2 million. I'd say, you know what? If you can guarantee me that you're going to win 7 games a year, I think the standard should be higher than that, but I'll reward you for that. We're going to pay you $800,000 a year, but we're going to pay you $1.4 million for 7 win seasons. Then that's where I could see, okay, well, he's guaranteeing me basically that he's going to win to a certain level and get us to bowl games and go 7-5 with winning records. And if he doesn't, then his salary drops and we save money. So that should not be the standard at Kentucky at this point. Mark Stoops is doing better than that, and 7-5 should not be some kind of standard that kicks in a bonus unless something like that is the part of the agreement.
Right. Well, I think that was probably for the low end, but they also got the 10 win in there as well for 2 years. So probably for the high end version of it.
Which is kind of strange because 10 wins is a lofty goal for Kentucky, and that's great. I agree with that, but they're not kicking in for 8 or 9 wins. That's kind of like he just needs to have a decent season, okay season, for them to kick in with extra money, but then to kick in with more, he's got to like really jump.
Right. Well, I mean, I know it's weird to everybody because we've been irrelevant for so long, but if we win our bowl game, we'll win 10 games 2 out of the last 4 years.
That's right.
That's pretty good for Kentucky.
Sure. It is.
I mean, if you're an Alabama fan, you also, I mean, 10 wins is a horrible season for them.
Sure.
Which
10-2 right now.
Probably going to happen this year.
But, I'm looking at 10-2 for Ohio State, and it does not look pretty.
No, it does not. Another coach that got a contract extension was David Clawson, the head coach of Wake Forest. I haven't heard you talk about that extension. What are your thoughts?
We actually recorded with a 247 sports guy from Wake Forest today, so we'll release that. But we touched upon that. I think Dave Clawson's exceptional, so they are doing a nice job by retaining him.
I agree. I mean, I don't know any Wake Forest fans, and I hope Wake Forest fans call on the show, but I would imagine they're in the same boat I am. They're just happy to have their coach, especially with all these big name jobs opening up. So, I didn't also hear your thoughts about Brent Pry, the head coach of Virginia Tech now. I mean, Penn State's defensive coordinator, while he's been good, it feels like a wild card hire. Like, it could either go great or it could go horrible. I have no read for the hire.
Well, the only read I have for that hire is the performance at Penn State, and also what I hear from our Virginia Tech guys that they posted a segment on our channel. Our guys, Mike McDaniel and Paul Van Wagner, they're in ESPN Blacksburg that do Virginia Tech content all the time. And they basically state that in Brent Pry's work at Penn State, so his defense is good at Penn State and has been rock solid good. And in addition to that, he is a main factor in recruiting those good players, those future NFL players to that Penn State defense. And apparently, I've not confirmed this myself by looking at the roster, he's recruited extremely well in the state of Virginia.
That's probably important for them because they're losing their recruits to Virginia and North Carolina.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah. And do you have? I saw that video. You weren't in it. That's why I would ask you. But do you have a Virginia Tech channel?
Absolutely, we do. We just started that baby up. Virginia Tech, voice of college football. Yes. So anybody who's supporting us, then please subscribe.
I cannot find it.
Okay, I will find the link. I will leave the link in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, no problem, man. Listen, I hope you let me talk. That's the way it works. You give me a voice. That's the voice of college football.
Absolutely, you do.
And by the way, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. So hit that little red subscribe button.
That's it.
That way we can get marked to 32,000 subscribers.
Oh, we should do that in the next day or so.
Hopefully. I mean, hopefully you'll get more views and stuff talking about these big games because nobody wanted. No, I'm surprised nobody wanted to hear Western Kentucky versus UTSA.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That's actually going to be a good game. I mean, nobody's watched the video, but Western Kentucky football, but they got a good team with a good quarterback. I mean, he could break the all-time touchdown passes record this season.
Yes. Pick up on that. Very nice.
Oh, yeah. And what are your thoughts on Marcus Freeman probably going to be the head coach of Notre Dame?
He is the head coach at Notre Dame. Yes.
He is? I haven't
so I think there's a little bit more risk there than there would have been with a head coach with experience, but I think it's worth it because I think they would have lost him otherwise, because I think there was an understanding there that as long as Brian Kelly was there, that Brian Kelly was a short timer in the 2 to 4 year range, and Marcus Freeman would continue to learn and grow and then take it over. But that happened a lot sooner than they anticipated, and that they wanted to retain him. So I certainly served up to our Notre Dame guy, Brian Driscoll, when we had him on, and I posted that video just a couple hours ago, that maybe they didn't want him to take over quite yet, but they were kind of caught in the middle, didn't want to lose him, and then therefore extended, but maybe they didn't. That's just a little conjecture on my part. And he seems fully capable of taking over the job. But this is what I'm going to predict. Basically, that he is the man for the job. He will do a good job at Notre Dame. And what that translates to is finishing in the top 10 in the country on a regular basis. But we will see question marks. We will see him grow into the job. He needs to rely on his coordinators a lot early on and mentors outside the program, because he'll have some growing pains. He's a young coach taking over a huge football operation. He'll make a few mistakes.
Right. Is he retaining most of his staff there at Notre Dame?
Yeah. So Brian Kelly wanted both his offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator to come with him, and Notre Dame jacked up their salaries to keep them.
That's very important.
Yep.
That's very important. Especially, I mean, because if Notre Dame lost them, I mean, that whole program could go sideways real quickly. So, especially not being in the conference, they don't have that cushion, I guess you could say. Them being independent, they're kind of in no man's land. But final thing I would like to ask you, Mark, is too many people hyping up USC? Because everybody thinks they got Lincoln Riley, they're going to go 100-0 next year, looking for the playoffs. I mean, Lincoln Riley's a great coach, but let's pump the brakes. Let's see him coach a game there. I think it's a little too much just to go all out right now. I want to see him get a recruiting class in first.
Oh, he'll get a recruiting class.
So do you think that people saying they're going to make the playoffs in year one, like next year, is too much?
I think that's too much. But if you put
because
together
that's what people are saying.
That people are saying that, and they had the worst defense in the Pac-12 this year. So that's a pretty big jump to make. So if he's able to field the best offense, let's just make an assumption, the best offense in the Pac-12, they at least need to have the 5th or 6th best defense in the Pac-12, most likely, to win the conference. So they've got to make huge strides on defense and on offense, but he's supposed to be able to fix an offense quick. And his recruiting class that he's bringing in now, which I don't know where USC ranked before he showed up, but let's give this a look real quick. Because we're only 2 weeks away from National Signing Day. So USC, oh my goodness. So before Lincoln Riley here for 2022. And again, most of these guys are going to sign here in a couple of weeks. They right now have the second to worst class in the Pac-12 and number 88 in the nation. So that's going to jump considerably, but it's not going to jump from 88 to number 7 in the country. You know, he'll be fortunate to have like a top 30 class. So this class is not going to be great, although one condition I'll put on it, there's only 5 hard commits right now. So this class is probably weighted down significantly by the lack of numbers. And obviously this class isn't only going to have so much significance or impact on the next season. So I think that USC fans should be happy and satisfied if he makes it to the conference championship game. All right, man.
Yeah, and well, the last thing I want to do, Mark, is, you know, there's plenty of great games going on this week, and if I wanted to get my picks for the game, where would I get them from?
You go to Patreon. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV. You get my picks, which have done nicely this year. But I would like to finish strong here with the conference championship games. And, of course, we'll have all the picks of the bowl games and the playoffs as well. And also our 20 media members that will provide their picks as well each and every week. And we are predicting all 10 conference championship games. Of course, go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, or you go to the link in the description section.
Well, and how much is this, Mark? Because you're predicting like 50 games there.
Yeah, so I've already predicted. Oh, my goodness. I predict about 20 or 22 a week. So we'll be at about somewhere around 300 for the season. So that's $5 a month. That's it. So there you go.
That's a heck of a deal, Mark.
Heck of a deal.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy. If I was the people in the chat, and I mean, well, Mark, what is your record? Because you're picking a lot of games.
Yeah, I picked too many games. I would do better picking less games, but I just like picking all the top 25 games. So we're around 58% against the spread for the season, about 80% against the money line. Our goal is 80% and 60% against the spread. That's our aim each and every year.
58% is still pretty good, Mark.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
Yeah, 58 is pretty good talking to you.
Well, to Real MVP, thank you so much. You have a good one. All right, 2 more calls here at the Voice of College Football. Let's see who's on the line. Hello.
Mark, it's Zach from Columbus.
Hey, Zach.
How are you?
I'm doing well. What's going on?
Well, I figured I'd give you a call and, make some predictions pertaining to this Michigan-Iowa game.
Okay.
And I got a kick out of your guy Corey. Watching him, he says that he's not a homer and that he calls, he takes his fan cap off, and then his entire reasoning for Iowa to win is he has this gut feeling. If that's not a homer, I don't know what is.
Well, I would say that if you listen to him on a regular basis, he's as critical against Iowa football than anybody I could certainly. He's not a homer in any such way. He would not be as critical as he is. He's critical
in this one situation.
All sorts of.
But in this one for this one game, I think that he's taken off his, analyst hat and he's put on his homer hat.
Yeah, he's going with a gut react. But you've never thought that a game sizes up one way, but you just have a feeling or a gut instinct that the other team's going to win?
No, I mean, generally what I do is I watch the games, look at the stats, look at the talent on the field, and then make a determination for the most part.
Absolutely. I understand all that. I do the same thing, but I'll use the Ohio State Michigan game as a case example. Starting sometime on Friday, I would say I had a gut feeling that Michigan was going to win that game, but by all indications, Michigan going into that game was not nearly as good as Ohio State.
I called that game, and I think I called that game second or third week into the college football season.
Well, based on
when I called in,
but if you're paying attention to the statistics and the results on the field, there was no comparison between the two teams going into that game.
Yeah, I think that it was just a different. Just watching them throughout the season is just a different Michigan team, and I think that it's just a completely different Michigan team that we've seen from years past. And watching them, I didn't think, especially going into Ann Arbor, is also a big deal. And it's just a team that looked and felt different. So there's a feeling. There's part of it's gut, some of it, but most of it, I would like to think that I am fair and try to be as impartial as possible when making the predictions. So yeah, I think a big part of it is just them playing in Ann Arbor, and also not having that C.J. Stroud. I just don't have. He's just still young. There's still a lot of maturation for him. And I don't think it took as much for him to be rattled, especially with that pass rush that Michigan had. But I'm just giving Corey a little bit of flack. It's not like he's allowed. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to be a homer every once in a while. You got to give a guy a pass. He just has this gut feeling, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not
per se.
Yeah, everything points to Michigan. Michigan's a better team. Decisively better. They should win.
Yeah.
But if you've watched college football or sports for any length of time, you know that there have been a zillion times when teams worse than Iowa have beaten teams better than Michigan. So it happens.
Well, sure. Appalachian State beat Michigan. Absolutely. One of the things that I find fascinating about this game is, Jim Harbaugh played for Kirk Ferentz in Baltimore. Kirk Ferentz was the offensive coordinator, and of course Jim Harbaugh, quarterback.
Yep.
I find that fascinating.
They came within a Hail Mary of going to the Super Bowl.
Right, and of course Bob Bowles. He hired Ferentz at Iowa, and he also hired Harbaugh at Stanford. And another thing is that Bowles shared a lot of information pertaining to Ferentz to Jim Harbaugh while at Stanford. So, interesting that Jim Harbaugh has intimate knowledge of how Kirk Ferentz operates and how he does what he does. So that's something that can't be overlooked, because Jim Harbaugh has intimate knowledge pertaining to just how he runs his programs, and obviously how his teams are built and constructed. So I think that's definitely a point in the Michigan camp. I do believe that there's a strong possibility that we may see in the first quarter, possibly even for the first half of the game, a hangover from the Ohio State-Michigan game. You may not see the up tempo, you're going to see a lull possibly just from a hangover. I do believe though that most of the season, what we've seen with Michigan is that for most of the season, they've been a second half team. They really have kicked it into high gear in the second half, and I think that Michigan's going to pull away in the second half. And I think they're going to pull away big. If I were to put a score on this game, and my score for the Ohio State-Michigan game was really close. I was only I predicted 41. I think I predicted, go back and look, but it was like 41, 43 or something like that to 34. But if I were to put a point on this game, I would say it's probably going to be 28-13 by the time it's all said and done. I just don't see how Iowa is going to be able to even put points up with this offense and with this Michigan pass rush. I just don't. I think 13 points may even be a tall order if this Iowa defense can't give this Michigan offense a fit or create turnovers, because for Iowa, they need turnovers, because they don't get turnovers. It's famine for them, and it's going to put a lot of pressure and heartache on the offense. And then again, on the other side, you have Cade McNamara, and you have an offense that they're very stingy. They don't give these turnovers. So it's not overall, it's not a good matchup for Iowa, just all in all. So I think in the end, Michigan, you may see the slow Michigan team out of the gate, but then going into the second half, they pull away and win, I think, by more than one possession.
Well, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. So Michigan fan goes 28-13 there, which is pretty conventional thinking. Can't disagree with anything he said there, because, again, if the game goes as expected based on the last 12 games and based on where the teams are strong and weak, then, yeah, that's about the ballpark that it seems to be going. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Jacob. Got two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
One, who wins the national title first, Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly? And two, tell me what you think of Brian Kelly's new Southern accent, and I'll hang up to listen to the answer. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So, Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly to win a national championship? Well, if you work on probabilities there, LSU has proven more capable in recent years of winning national championships. Of course, getting there 3 times since the last time that USC was there, and winning twice. But Kelly's old. Let's say this is a difficult lift for either one of them. Like, they're not going in there going 11-1 and getting to playoffs most of the time. Well, I'm going to play the odds here and say Brian Kelly's 60 years old, and he may be in this for 6 or 7 years, and that might be the end of it. I don't know how long I think he signed it. Did he sign a 10-year contract? I did not look at the Brian Kelly LSU contract. Anyway, I'm not going to dig into his contract. $10 years. He's probably not going to fulfill his contract. The odds of Brian Kelly fulfilling his contract at LSU is minimal. 20%. He's not coaching 10 years at LSU. So Lincoln Riley's going to win a national championship before Brian Kelly does. Number one. Number two, what was the second one? I don't remember the second. He had the second one there. I cannot recall what. I thought there was a second question there. Yeah, don't remember that. My apologies. Maybe somebody can put it in the chat. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, our last call of the night. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Nick. How's it going?
Hey, Nick. I'm good. What's going on?
I wanted to ask you Ohio State Bucknuts down there, the state down south, do the wins year after year? I mean, at least on my end as a Michigan fan, I'm still still riding high here. Over the years, has the wins that high slowly decreased year after year winning, or do you still get that rush? Have we just been missing out, the team up north, all these years?
Well,
or year after year, you guys win?
The first thing that strikes me is that this term Bucknuts, which of course it's not necessarily a derogatory comment, because they're actually Of course, Ohio State websites like 247 Sports that calls themselves Bucknuts, but I think that's kind of a stupid name myself.
I've just heard the term. I've just heard the term all over the place.
Yeah, I gotta say it's
Buckeye.
probably only been in the last like 5 years that I've heard the term. I never heard the term like my whole life, and then I'd say in the last 5 years.
Interesting that you say that. I've just heard it through. I've heard. Well, let me put it this way: I've heard many more derogatory terms over the last couple days.
Oh, both sides have their derogatory terms. There's no doubt about that. I used to work with a guy that had a whole fight song, "Hail to the Victors," that was changed radically. That was pretty defamatory and laced with profanity about Michigan. But yeah, so yes. I would say that it only slightly decreases. Yes. But also you're talking to a guy that's at a certain age. And so my thrill of victory and agony of defeat in sports in general and in college football was astronomically much higher when I was 20 versus my current age.
So I watched most of it. Well, not obviously to you, but I watched pretty much all of your videos, and I really like your crossover videos, like pregame or a preview you did with Corey, and then Michigan football at at college football Mark Rogers with Desmond, and Corey in that video was like, it was so funny. Like, obviously we want to win a Big Ten championship, and that's a huge game. But like, you specifically at one point in that video said, like, he mentioned something like, I get that it's Ohio State and Michigan, and he rambled on and on and on. And then shortly after that, you interrupted him, and you were kind of being contrarian and saying, but they beat Ohio State. And when you said that, I was honestly laughing my ass off. Like, I was like, it's still, other people do not understand. I still don't think other fans in the Big Ten understand what actually happened. Like, the scene that we saw on Saturday, that's never going to be repeated. That's never, like, even if Michigan wins next year, or Ohio State wins it, like those camera angles, what we saw on the field.
You're right.
That was it. It hasn't sunk in. And even as a Michigan fan, like, obviously I respect Ohio State and I want to beat Ohio State, but no one expected Michigan to win that game. Like, people said there was a chance, but even then, like, I still, like, okay, it's kind of like a situation. You come into that game, Ohio State, the trio of wide receivers, which, by the way, I still don't think people are giving Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave enough credit. Like, 27 points in that Michigan game, like, the catches they were making were, I have never, in my favorite college football player of all time is Reggie Bush. But, like, if people think back to some of your favorite college football players, the catches, just the plays that were made, especially by Smith and Jigba. And Chris Olave is just not appreciated enough. I feel like he's a player in Ohio State history that Ohio State fans are going to look back on and be like, he's like a fine wine. He's going to get better with age. Like, people are going to look back on him and the stats and everything. It was just, it was an incredible game. And honestly, like, I cannot process what happened Saturday. And I understand that people, like, are kind of piling on now and saying, well, it's popular to say that was the best college scene ever. But if you go back and you look at the play-by-play and just sit back and absorb the game, like the swings, like, how many people, honestly, Mark, I want to get your opinion on this, and I'll let you go here soon. But when Cade McNamara threw that pick, into, I don't know if it was triple coverage. It was at least double coverage. It was a bad, like, he was throwing it. Like, what was your feeling in that? Because I don't think there was a single person on the planet, honestly, if you're being honest, who did not think, like, here we go again.
Yeah, so Michigan had already scored, and 2 years ago when they lost 56-27, Michigan scored the first touchdown of that game and easily marched down the field and scored the touchdown. And I instantly went back to that game thinking, is this going to be the same thing here, where they got off to a hot start, they had a great drive, Ohio State's a little bit on its heels, but they made the play that's going to turn this. Did they just make the play that, okay, now they got grounded, they're set, they got past the crowd and the shock of the beginning of the game, and now they're going to settle in, take control of this game, and they're going to be okay?
Well, and that's what I was thinking. And of course I was thinking in my head, because I know Ohio State fans are fairly opinionated on Bryson Shaw. Like, I do keep track of what people are saying about your current players and whatnot, but I'm still kind of in shock. One of the things that I actually think is an underrated theme of this is Jim Harbaugh, for lack of better terms. Have you ever seen the J.J. McCarthy, Cade McNamara subbing in and out the quarterback? Like, we saw almost a disaster happen. Well, pretty much a disaster happened with that in the Michigan State game. You don't see J.J. McCarthy in the Penn State game at all. And you could argue that game was the turning point for Michigan.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, J.J. McCarthy comes back in. Is that just like stubbornness? Is that ballsy? Like, what? Honestly, in my mind, as a Michigan fan, I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, I have not seen this script. It's confusing. I love it. I hate it at the same time. But like this quarterback carousel going on, just honestly, it kind of just seems like Jim Harbaugh is just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, and somehow it's working out in a way that it shouldn't, and definitely hasn't in the past. I mean, did the whole J.J. McCarthy thing in the Ohio State game surprise you?
I would say that based on the way Jim Harbaugh talks and the way he acts and how quirky he is, what you just said about him throwing crap at the wall and it's sticking seems to go along with the way he presents himself. But I'm going to think that he had a plan when the season started. And I made this statement a number of times after Penn State got bit in the rear end when Sean Clifford got knocked out against Iowa and their backup quarterback was completely unprepared. Deer in headlights, could not run the offense. They couldn't do anything. He was awful. That it hit me right then. What Jim Harbaugh is doing is smart. He is taking calculated risks. He's not just playing his backup quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, during garbage time. He's playing him during meaningful times, but it's limited, it's calculated, it's during certain portions of the game. And they are going to reap the benefits of that, either by him making plays or by him just being prepared to play against a good opponent. And so I thought it was a good move by him from day one. And then even against the Wisconsins of the world, getting, again, meaningful snaps. So then once the issues happen against Michigan State, you're right. Harbaugh pulled that plan for one game. And so then when he came in against Ohio State, I thought, well, either, maybe he had an original plan. There was the hiccup. He maybe assessed how J.J. McCarthy responded to that, talked to him, observed him in practice, and thought, okay, everybody makes mistakes, and he did as well. But that doesn't mean he's not, just because somebody makes mistakes doesn't mean that they're not prepared or that they're overwhelmed. And I still trust him in those kind of situations. So we are going to continue with the original plan.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And lastly, again, I'm very excited for this week. Not only Michigan versus Iowa, but we got some Georgia versus Alabama. I think people are not giving Bama enough credit in that game. I just got a feeling about Bryce Young. There's just some things in that game with Georgia. I mean, I respect Georgia, I do, but I think there's a lot of people out there, if they're being honest, there's some teams that just have an identity to play their best game. And here's the other thing about Alabama's defense real quick in that game is maybe it's too late in the season, but don't forget now, Alabama has a ridiculous amount of talent too on defense. And if they just put it together on one night, that defense can steamroll anybody. Like, they just haven't put it together yet. I don't want to play Alabama.
Yeah, this Georgia-Alabama comparison is on the field, and I've made the comparisons too. If you look at the common opponents, there's no comparison. But it's not, the talent isn't like one of them's Ohio State and the other one's Iowa. They're both on the same exact level. So the talent, it's not that Georgia's so much more talented that they have put the team's gelling and they've put it together.
I just kind of get the feeling with Georgia that offense, and I could be totally wrong on this, but I just think eventually that offense is just going to stall at the worst possible time. Like, I don't know why I get that feeling, but maybe I'm the only one who feels that way. I have respect for Stetson Bennett, but I mean, Georgia's, at least to my knowledge, I don't think they have any standout wide receivers or tight ends. I don't.
Well, I don't know about that.
Do they? I mean, I haven't watched a ton of them. I guess I haven't heard.
They don't have standouts from the standpoint of statistically, but in terms of talent, absolutely they do. They have waves of wide receivers, and they have a tremendous freshman tight end in Brock Bowers. He's instantly one of the best tight ends in college football.
Okay, well, yeah, that's fair. Like I said, I haven't watched a ton of them. So yeah, I guess I could be totally wrong on that. I mean, a lot of the reference I've heard with them offensively is kind of like quicksand. They just kind of slowly, maybe not that slowly, talent-wise, but just kind of eat away at you. But I wanted to get back to this because even if Georgia wins it all, that's great, whatever. Honestly, as a Michigan fan, I don't really care. I think next year, if, Jim Harbaugh said this is the start of the beginning, which I do think that's possible. But, people are still saying like Jim Harbaugh is 1-5 against Ohio State. Well, that's fine, but he's 1-1 against Ryan Day. Terrible record against Urban Meyer, but Urban Meyer is what? Second greatest coach in college football history ever? Like third? He's ridiculous. He's won everywhere he's won. I kind of think that next year's game between Michigan and Ohio State is going to be one of the most intense and critical games in the history of the rivalry.
Yep.
It's going to be in Columbus. Ohio State fans are allowed to officially hate Michigan to a ridiculous level now that we've actually won a game. And again, Ryan Day, Harbaugh, 1-1. Whoever gets that, it's so interesting because Is Ryan Day able to figure out the defense? He's shown a brilliant offensive mind, but is he ballsy enough and does he have that physical coaching philosophy like Jim Tressel? I believe the Ohio guy is going to fight so hard in the fourth quarter for me. Urban Meyer, I'm going to go get top tier athletes, but I want to establish physical dominance. I want to dominate. At the end of the day, I want to push you in your face, and there's nothing you can, like in a sense, it's non-negotiables. When you get on the field with me, you're going to have to deal with it. Like, this is a non-negotiable. Like, we are going to throw this in your face or run it down your throat. Ezekiel Elliott, Cardale Jones. I know he was a third string quarterback. Can Ryan Day kind of establish that physicality? And same thing with Jim Harbaugh. Like, at this point, you're going to get momentum on the recruiting trail to get higher, maybe slightly higher rated recruits, but you need to still maintain that physicality. So I can let you go here, but I think that next year in Columbus, I'm honestly not. I've loved this college football season, but I'm honestly already looking onto that game because I think that is going to be a bloodbath. So we'll see, and it could change. I mean, I know this year. I don't think this year has necessarily changed the rivalry. I mean, I still think Ohio State is going to have the advantage just because of the recruiting standpoint and the how many 5-stars they have all over the field and everything. But next year is going to be, talk about a game, that's going to be the one to circle on your calendar. So anyway, Mark, thanks for your time. I'll let you go.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that. So one of the things that was stated during that call that I didn't give a whole lot of time to because, I'm on here all day, every day, giving my opinions. So if you guys haven't noticed, I allow you to give your opinion. And if I don't get asked a question, I don't necessarily, unless I see something that's factually wrong, don't jump on your calls and let you speak because this is your time to give your take. But he's right. The scene after the Ohio State-Michigan game is always a glorious or disturbing one. It's always a spectacle. That one was of massive proportions. And I'm biased in this, so I readily admit that, but I don't remember seeing a scene like that in college football. And I'm not the type person, fan/analyst that's really into scenes. That's not my thing. And I tell you, I didn't even absorb it for more than a few seconds. I didn't want to see it. I was done. I was jumping on here to do post game. So that was number one responsibility. Priority was to deliver the content, get on here, open up the live stream, get it going. So I wasn't going to wait around and watch that. Plus, it was disturbing. I wasn't going to watch it. But I saw just enough, 5 seconds, 10 seconds to be like, kind of like, wow, I'm fully now recognizing how big this is. That football game was the highest rated game of the year, which let's understand, Ohio State, Michigan, even when they field like decent teams, okay teams, bad teams, it's still one of the 2 or 3 highest rated games of the year every year. That's how big the rivalry is. That there have been games I could go back into the 80s when one of them was 7 and look at 1987. Ohio State was 5-4-1 and Michigan was 7-3. Neither one of them were ranked. They were 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place in the Big Ten. Always one of the couple highest ranked games of the year. Usually not surpassed unless there's like a 1-2 matchup somewhere. Anyway, this game was like 50% higher in total views rating than the second highest game of the year. So it wasn't just the highest rated game of the year. It's like 50% higher. Like the second highest was the Iron Bowl with 10.5 million viewers, and they were at 16 million. That's like 50 to 60% more. Crazy. So he had a lot of good points there, but I will respond at some other time. I was asked a question that I forgot by the previous caller who wanted me to comment on the Brian Kelly accent. So I take it that Brian Kelly delivered his newfound Southern accent at the LSU press conference. So I have not seen the LSU press conference. I will state this, that if in fact Brian Kelly has discovered some kind of Southern accent and rolled that out and is trying to subtly win over the LSU faithful with a Southern, like if that's truly happening, I am now interested to go, and I will do this as soon as the live stream's over, watch the Brian Kelly news conference. And if he certainly did this, rolled out some kind of Southern accent, then that can only be phrased in the way I phrase things as completely pathetic and lacking confidence. Just be yourself. Just be who you are. Just be who you are. You're a Northern guy. That's fine. They hired you. You're always going to be that. I lived in the South for 6 or 7 years in Mississippi. What's funny is my firstborn was born, well, they both were in Mississippi, but my firstborn, we lived there until he was almost 4. So he learned to talk down there. So his mom and I, Midwest accents. And, you know, he would be around. We'd go to church. We'd take him all over the place, restaurants, whatever. He was a very friendly kid. From the time my boy could walk, talk, anything, that the kid was the happiest kid in the world. I could never relate to parents who talked about how hard it was raising kids. Yes, it is hard. It is challenging. I don't want to say that. But I'm talking about when they're little. Yes, you have to deal with tantrums. Yes, you have to deal with certain things. And I don't want to take this down the path of parenting 101. But if you set precedents and hold them accountable, and you do that early, then it pays dividends beyond. It pays dividends 25 years later. It does. Believe me. If anybody out there has little kids or will have little kids, beyond anything I've ever said about college football, understand, be disciplined, force them to be disciplined, hold them accountable, set precedents, and don't budge. Don't be a softy. Don't be a lightweight. Don't give in because they throw tantrums. Don't give in for anything. Be fair, be kind, be courteous. You can be a disciplinarian and still be loving and kind and courteous and respectful and all that. But don't back down from your standards or your precedents, and it will pay dividends. My kids didn't talk back to me. Like, I would go out in public and I would see situations or go to other people's houses and see their kids talk back to them. I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, my kids never talked back to me, ever. I remember one time when my son was about 15, him saying something that was disrespectful to me. And that was like a shock. And I corrected him. That was that. So anyway, why did I start down that path? It's just funny because my son is 2 and 3 years old learning how to talk, and he had a Southern accent. We were like, why does our son have a Southern accent? Where did this come from? So he legitimately had one. And I almost think until this day, and he just turned 25, that he still has a tinge of a Southern accent from the very beginning, a tinge of it. But it was just hilarious because people would find it funny. They'd be like, there's this family from the North and the mom and dad have Midwest accents. The kid's a little 2-3-year-old with his howdy, this accent. I didn't even sound Southern. I sounded like a demented cowboy or something. So I'll have to check out the fake Brian Kelly Southern accent. I'll have to check that out. But I do appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much. We will be back tomorrow night after the Pac-12 championship game. And don't you dare forget that Conference USA championship game. Western Kentucky and Texas San Antonio. All right. I've got all sorts of great videos that are going to be posted tomorrow. So check them out. Starting with a little Georgia talk with Uncle Lou. We appreciate the Wholesome One being here. I posted his comment right there because he enjoyed the previous caller. But yeah, we got Uncle Lou. We got ACC championship previews. Man, I hate to do all this work as I did comparing common opponents for Georgia and Alabama and never get to actually producing and posting the video. But I've made it through like 2 out of 4 opponents, and it's going to take more work to do. So we'll see if we get to it. See you tomorrow night. Voice of College Football right here. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for all that you do and contribute and participate and encourage with your kind comments and your contributions. We appreciate it. Hit that like button on the way out. Subscribe to our USC channel in particular. That would be the one to focus on next. Thank you so much for pushing us over 1,000 subs on the Iowa channel. Let's do it on USC as well. We post regular content there on the USC channel, and you've got to be excited if you're a Trojans fan about one Lincoln Riley. See you tomorrow night.